everybody, and welcome to the MinnMax Show, a place about games, friends, and getting better. I'm Ben Hansen, and we have the full crew assembled yet again. We have... I'll stop screaming, that's obnoxious. We have Jeff Marchiafava.
Hello.
Ooh, Sergio Vasquez.
I'm here.
Kyle Hilliard.
Number one.
Hello, Kyle.
Hi. Hello. I'm not as exuberant as Serial, but I'm happy to be here.
You will be. Ana Diaz is here.
Hi, I am here at the beginning.
Perfect. And Leo Vader.
Hey, Ben, feeling exuberant today.
Great. I hope everybody watching or listening is feeling exuberant. It's the holiday break. I hope you're all relaxing. Hopefully you got some time off, and hopefully you're not sick of Game of the Year content, because this is what they call the really big show. This is the grand finale for the Game of the Year debates for creating the 210s. Objectively, very subjectively, the best video games according to us, our perspective out. We're just ranking and listing based on our love for the games this year. And before we even get into it, Kyle, you mentioned it last week, but I think it's worth stressing again that we're going to say some mean things about some of these games, but every game on this list right now is a good game at least. We love all these games, hats off to the developers, but you know what? At some point, we got to start trying to figure out where they actually land on this list. So therefore, we're going to be a little nitpicky at times. But just, you know, the big umbrella statement, these games are great. Kyle, you were looking at the list, just double checking that. Did any stand out as not great that we should bump off the list right now?
I was trying to decide if I should make a joke that there is one that is bad.
You know who you are.
No, you know, genuinely, they're all good.
Okay.
Except for this one here. But they're all good.
Still works. I woke up in a cold sweat the other night again and thought, oh crap, Teardown! Leo, did you consider Teardown for this list? That's that voxely, everything exploding heist game that's in early access right now, but it seemed like it had its big splash this year. Did you have thoughts on that one?
I considered it. I didn't stick with it in a big enough way to push for it, but cool game. I look forward to seeing what it becomes when it's done.
Yeah.
Or maybe it'll have another chance then.
Okay. So for people watching on YouTube, thank you for being here. You can subscribe to the podcast version. Just search the MinnMax Show in your favorite podcast app. It's a public podcast. It's not Patreon exclusive, although you do get early access to it 1 day early if you support us on Patreon. But if you're listening to this, you can also watch us on YouTube to see us actually build the list. So for everybody listening, thank you for being here. Let's run down the 210s as we have it right now. This is in a loose-ish order. So the point of this episode is debate these. But right now, from the bottom up, for the 210s, it's Spelunky 2, Assassin's Creed Valhalla, Spider-Man Miles Morales, Immortals Phoenix Rising, Paper Mario The Origami King, Crash Bandicoot 4, It's About Time, Gears Tactics, Watch Dogs Legion, The Pathless, Astro's Playroom, Animal Crossing New Horizons, Ori and the Will of the Wisps, Spiritfarer, Kentucky Route Zero, Yakuza Like a Dragon, Final Fantasy VII Remake, Last of Us Part 2, Half-Life Alyx, Ghost of Tsushima, and Hades. Okay, last week we decided, all right, we're feeling pretty good about where we're at for roughly what's making the cut for the 210s. It's just about organizing that. But before we get into really the details here, did anybody have more thoughts on things we should maybe drop off the list, put on the list? Any final wiggle room here?
Well, first, Hanson, we should also mention that controversially, we have disqualified Cyberpunk 2077. And we're considering that a 2021 game.
Yeah.
When it's done and shipped and available on PlayStation 4.
And we've played more of it.
Oh, Kyle, you have thoughts on this?
I was thinking that I was assuming it was more about none of us are, we're all contractually obligated not to play too much of it at this point.
For
bit
of a conflict of interest.
Yeah, the deepest dive is still going on, by the way.
The making me wake up in the middle of the night aspect of it, though, is like, among us, we've kind of been like, no, it's not even in consideration. It didn't come out this year. But Cyberpunk did. You know what I mean? So it's like, how militant do we want to be about this? Are we going to arbitrarily put a stop in right on the day before Cyberpunk came out and say, like, that's our year? Or... I
think we take it on a case-by-case basis, right? It's a combination of, like, the game released too late for whenever we decide to do it, right?
I guess. I don't know. It just seems like, I don't want to make a special exception for Cyberpunk.
I don't think it's arbitrary, though. It's like, literally like, here's this game that takes 6 weeks to beat that released 2 weeks before the end of the year.
So like, is our year
and
like
a game
December 9th to December 9th? Is that like, do we consider that next year?
Well, because I think
it Forever become part of the discussion next year because it comes out on the 23rd.
Well, that one definitely so, but I think there's a difference between like let's say that game company releases their next game on December 10th. I would be more inclined to have us talk about that year because we would have had a good chance to beat it. Because I can't imagine that game's going to be 12 hours or like 30 hours, right? Whereas it's something like if they had released Journey in December 10th, I think we could have talked about it because it's short enough for us to have gotten through it.
So is the general consensus that I am thinking about it by the numbers? Am I being too militant about it?
I'm in your direction as well, Kyle, but I just think talking about it next year is going to feel so bizarre and antiquated. And Leo being like, well, if it stands the test of time, then we'll want to talk about it. But I just feel like January games feel like a freaking lifetime ago. The idea of going back now for this list and considering Jedi Fallen Order, or some equivalent game, it just seems insane to try and remember the passion
a game
for that.
from January on that list, though.
Or like Dragon Ball Z Kakarot.
Right.
Yeah, I think we gave that game its piece. Like we weren't crazy about it, but it's like we talked about that game in a way that we would have talked about it regardless of the month that it came out, I think.
Yeah, I was with you and Kyle to begin with, but like I could confidently say, yeah, it should be on the list at this point. But the fact that we have to then rank where all these games go, and none of us have been allowed to play more, than like the first 10 to 20 hours or whatever. And it's still such a big question mark for all of us that I feel like it's okay to make an exception in this one. Yeah. And if next year we have a deepest dive that carries us past the point of making a list like this again, then that one we can push too.
Yeah.
Also, we're going to be playing Cyberpunk for most of January, it seems.
Yeah,
so
for the deepest dive.
That game will definitely leave some amount of impact, right? Like, I don't think we're going to forget about it.
Okay.
All right. So we're okay with a game like this, which is exceptional in many ways, good and bad. Like, we're okay making that line.
I think
so. Yeah. I don't think it's as clear cut as the date, but I think it's a matter of realistically, what can we cover for this list? Right.
I will say though, okay, I am going to push for Among Us again, because if we're going to fudge it for Cyberpunk, which I understand why we're fudging it for Cyberpunk, I feel like there's an argument to be made for Among Us. Like, I get that it wasn't released this year. I get that I can put it on my personal list, but like, it is literally the most downloaded game of the year. Like, I feel like I do feel like I was thinking about it more, and that seems like to me like one of the biggest like missing pieces on this list. Another game that I feel like is also that I've been sort of thinking about that I haven't spent a ton of time with is Genshin Impact, because like that game has an enormous audience as well. And again, it's not just like, okay, what is popular, it's about what we're excited about, right? But
just to pause you real quick, we did talk about Genshin.
Okay, cool.
But I mean, I personally I don't want to see that anywhere on the list. So that was kind of my
that's
reaction.
fine. Yeah, no, I get that.
Similarly, but that's kind of like where I'm at,
Yeah, but I do.
A good point to raise for sure.
Because just like looking at the list as a whole, like I do actually like something that I try to think about is how, like free games and mobile games are represented on this list, right? It's not just about like people's experiences with, their favorite games aren't just about like these big AAA games. And so.
It's, important to remember it's coming from our perspective out. It's easy to be like, well, this game was huge in the industry, so therefore it should be on the list. But it is, yes, I agree. Among Us is such a weird case, and it's really tough to judge here. But I feel good about trying to be somewhat strict about games releasing in early access or actually releasing this year. Otherwise, it's like, then it kind of opens the whole can of worms of like, this classic debate of, Rainbow Six Siege had an amazing update this year and more people are playing it this year than ever. So then are we going to fudge it for that?
I mean, we're talking about like 5 people when Among Us came out. Like,
yeah,
I don't think it had a 1% chance of making it on anyone's best of the year when it came out. I'm not morally opposed to it being on the list, I guess is my point. For it being the first year it could possibly have been on it, realistically. Sure. But I wouldn't fight for it just because I'm not the biggest fan of the game.
Yeah. This is always the fun question. Anna, can you live with it just being high on your personal list and that's how we give it its due?
I think what was hard is that like I think I have like, I think it to me, I'm sort of lumping it together with like just like a general sort of skew away from mobile games. And part of me is feeling like, okay, this was one of the games I played most this year. I don't know. I mean, I think it would look weird for it to not be there. It feels uncomfortable to me. Like I could live with it, but like for it not to be there, it's just like it doesn't sit right with me personally. I could live with it. Makes me uncomfortable.
Yeah. I'm in the stickler camp of the early access or full release this year. Early access, I know, is another confusing can of
I think we need to be honest with ourselves that we're always fudging it. Like, people played Hades last year. It could have been on the list last year.
Right.
Decided to put it on this year instead.
But it's like Dreams, you know? It's like, okay, we did that for last year with Dreams, then it was high up on the list, and then we felt like, okay, we gave it its due, and now this year we're going to leave it off. I agree, it's always a little squirrely, but a game from 2018. If we have a reason
to fudge, I think it's not just, and that's why it's good that these conversations are recorded, is that people can hear our reasoning as we're fudging.
Yeah.
I think that I have pretty sound reason for fudging Among Us. I know that I'm the only person who likes this game.
That to me is where I'm at, is that I'm sort of with Leo, is that like, I think if we had a collective passion for Among Us, I think I would have been fine with fudging it. I just don't, like, I personally don't really have much of an affinity for that game. So I think I'm more comfortable with the idea of leaving it off the list because we're not crazy about it.
Well, Anna loves it, but
disqualifying. Oh, sure. Okay. Well, if Anna wants to make the argument on the merits of the game, I think that's fine.
Yeah. I think it's a tough battle in this group, but like I think it's worth fudging. If we're gonna fudge Cyberpunk, we can fudge Among Us in there, but it's just gonna be. I mean, it's one that those
are two separate fudges. One is a white chocolate fudge. Yeah. Jeffem, you're a
fudge is all right.
You're a rules guy. How do you feel about this? You're uptight.
Well, I mean, I think there is a difference between we're going to fudge it because we haven't been able to play enough Cyberpunk to make a determination of it versus we're bringing an older game forward. But at this point, like, I don't care that much. If Anna wants to make the case, then I'm fine, and we should at least debate it. And if it makes the list because she's passionate enough to knock something else off the list, then that's fine. But if there's not enough collective reasoning, I don't like the idea of just saying like, well, someone's super passionate about it, but the rest of us aren't, so we're just going to disqualify it because the dates don't line up, when obviously we've fudged the dates for other games.
Right. I just don't want it on the list because it was big this year. Like, I want Anna to give her case.
I am ready to make the case, is what I realized.
It feels like there's so much pressure on you, but yes, we'd love to hear the case.
Should I do that right now?
I don't want to derail us. Anna's case for Among Us is now in session.
Okay. So here we go. So, okay, your point that this is, this is not starting off strong, but I'll get to why. It is not the best, like, mafia style whodunit game. It is not like, it does not have the best mini games or the best gameplay. And it does not have good communication, like, in the game.
You're stealing my argument.
It is a big word, but hear me out. Among Us has been such a fun game for me to play and experience because of the larger fandom around it. And for me, like, the ways that I engage with video games is like through fandom. So it's not just about playing Among Us. It's about talking about Among Us with my friends. It's about sending them videos, sending them animation skits that people make. It's about like looking and seeing that like thousands of young people have written like fanfics on Among Us that are really detailed, and it's like inspired a bunch of people, including myself, to get back into space horror like genre. So it's just like, and in addition to that, like, it is, even though it's not the greatest gameplay, like, even though there are drawbacks, it is accessible in a way that other games aren't. And like, again, that's not just like the only reason that I like it, but I think that as far as pandemic games go, like, you can't get much better than this one. And so, like, as, 2020 being very characterized by being in isolation, I think that like this is the quintessential 2020 game. It's like you're murdering people on a space station and you don't know who you can trust. And there's like a lot more to it than just like, the 2D animations and whatnot. And so like that is my case for Among Us.
Yeah.
Essentially that it is more than just the game itself.
It very much, it feels like a lot of arguments with Animal Crossing, like the 2020-ness of Animal Crossing, but also just the idea of like, Animal Crossing as a game, like it's fun and pretty simple. And my favorite part of Animal Crossing this year is talking about Animal Crossing and sharing stories with friends and just seeing that collective spirit rise up and just the discussion there for the overall experience. And so, I hear ya.
Anna, here's
Take my argument, but
my favor, I guess I could offer you. I can't back you on Among Us because I just don't find it particularly fun to play. But having some time to think about the previous episode, I will get your back on Persona 5 Royal. I will be there for you on that one.
So I'm sacrificing. I'm
just sorry. That's my promise to you.
Okay.
This
was actually a ploy to get Persona 5 Royal. That was to make everyone feel bad. No, I'm joking. I won't take it seriously. But I do want to like at least nod to like the general fandom around it and just say that is an important part of experiencing and playing a video game.
Yeah. I think for sure. I just wonder, even if in this world, in this official world, let's say we are including Among Us for debate here. I do feel like compared to some games like Splunky 2, which Jeffrem really likes and Leo likes just north of fine, or I don't know where you'd put it. You like it.
Sure.
I think of Among Us where it's like, yes, you're the most passionate about it. You really love it. And then there's several of us that dislike it or are neutral on it.
It feels to me like a Paper Mario situation where it's like one person is 10 out of 10 on this one. And then we have some people who are more cool on it.
Right. And they kind of maybe brings it back down.
Which at this point, Paper Mario is on there, so I don't know how those two stack up against each other.
And that's like kind of low-key one of the only reasons I'm a little like, maybe I feel hesitant about the list right now because I'm not confident about everything else that's on that top 20. Mm-hmm. Like Paper Mario.
I'm not familiar with this top 20 concept. These are the 210s, but
sorry,
I hear you in theory. Yeah.
Sorry, I just spoiled it for the entire MinnMax.
Yeah, Hansel will fix it in post. He'll bleep you.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. Well, let's leave Among Us in the alley-oop section. Yes, and just start poking at the list again. Does that seem like a good place to start? And if things move up, then so be it. And if things move down, so be it. All right, so Paper Mario's coming down. Yeah, we're all tearing down that giant piece of paper on the wall. No,
take it off.
I mean, I'm into it personally.
Okay, so moving up, Persona 5 Royal. I mean,
this feels like a very much like I'm really hungry, but I only know what I don't want to eat.
Which is paper.
Let's knock all these things down.
And I feel like that's the wrong way to approach it as well. Like if we do have one on the bottom that we really feel should move up, then by all means let's poke more.
Yeah, but just tearing down sucks.
Yeah.
I mean, I think Persona 5 Royal, if Kyle, you're losing sleep about it and Anna is passionate about it, one of her favorite experiences of the year, I think...
There were a couple things that Anna said and then you said, Hanson, where I was like, I kind of was fighting against it because I was like, it's a port. It's a good port of an old game, but it's like, if you look at passion, like, I don't know, I think Anna's is undeniable. And it's like, if it's a really good game, regardless of like, the sort of port it came from. I don't know. I just felt like I just thought about my argument more and I felt like I was like falling over and
Kyle,
I think it's totally worth considering regardless of those sort of outside.
I also will say like it changed the story from Persona 5 significantly and changed the pacing of the game and added new characters and like it built out the world in a pretty significant way. So it is
more than a patch.
Definitely.
I think it'd be cool to have it on this list. I think that'd be really cool. What would come down if we move Persona 5 up? What do you think is the weakest on that list?
For me, it feels like, I don't know, the weakest one to me feels like it's Assassin's Creed or Spelunky.
I think so too.
I forgot Assassin's Creed was still on there.
It's
okay
just
with Assassin's Creed.
I think Assassin's Creed is tough because it's such a huge game, and I have enjoyed it from what I've played, but that's like 25 hours or something, and it seems.
Oh, you only loved a game for 25 hours. I remember when we were doing like our console roundup, and you were like, "Man, I'm really loving the Xbox Series X, but it's only because I'm loving Assassin's Creed so much, and I want to get back to it."
That's true.
I feel like this is one game where I have also really enjoyed what I've played, and I feel like everything about that game is working. It is a solid, good game. You know, like the world is interesting, the characters are interesting, the progression, all of that stuff works and is fun and is engaging. It's just that it came out at a time when 5 other of these big open world games came out, and so everyone kind of bounced off to other things.
Yeah, I think with AC Valhalla, something that's coloring my perception of it too is, I enjoyed it. I think it's really cool. At the same time, when I think of these games that I want to go back to that I haven't finished, I don't think I'm going to be going back to Valhalla. And maybe it's just from talking to people who have finished it that are like, it's good, but like you get it at this point. It's just a lot more of that, and it doesn't really culminate in anything. And so this is the murky territory, but just that feeling of like, I haven't finished Yakuza Like a Dragon, but I'm so excited to finish that game. It's a huge gap in my mind for my love for it is just, do I actually want to see this thing through? And that's what's kind of sinking AC Valhalla a little bit in my mind. But this Spelunky 2, I agree, has got to go. Let's just get this one.
I like Valhalla dropping. There's a lot of games on this list that like I stopped and fully beat and have not gotten back to Valhalla, which I think is telling.
Yeah.
Like the Pathless was just like I played through and beat it because I was enjoying it so much. Immortals I'm playing more as opposed to Valhalla. I'm sticking with that as opposed to Valhalla. So,
Jeffem, can you live with Assassin's Creed Valhalla being erased from existence on planet Earth and all mentions of it replaced with Among Us?
You just moved up Persona 5.
I know, I was just messing with you. Yeah, so I moved up.
Are you okay with what I'm doing? Like, as I'm doing it? Is this cool? Are you like this?
By what you're doing?
I mentioned Among Us, but yeah, Persona 5 Royal is the one that I moved up.
Yeah, I feel like that sucks, but,
Also, Jeff, I'd like to say that I'm not super thrilled with, like, the time I spent with Valhalla, I thought that it was also decent, and so I feel a little hesitant to drop it down. I do think maybe we should try poking at something else before poking at Valhalla. Like, I'd like to throw
I love that idea. And like, honestly, like, I hate to keep bringing up Paper Mario because I know, Cyril, you absolutely love it, but it feels like the argument against Assassin's Creed is one person really likes it and everyone else is kind of like, yeah, I liked what I played, but then I bounced off of it and I don't feel like I need to go back to it, versus there were like 3 of you who said you didn't like Paper Mario.
I like Paper Mario, but I'm also
weird being on the list.
I'm also not going to finish Paper Mario the Origami King, but I like it.
If we're doing numbers, I didn't like Assassin's Creed Valhalla either. I played like 4 hours of it.
Yeah.
I didn't like it.
Is that because Watch Dogs came out at the same time, though, Leo?
Watch Dogs before.
But barely before, right?
It was like 2 weeks.
2 weeks.
Also, Leo played like 12 hours of Legion, so he could have gotten through it.
Yeah. But on the Paper Mario front,
Leo, but I mean, you like Odyssey. You like those formulas when it works.
So weird about
Valhalla
it
just didn't click with you, right?
That is part of it, though. Like, I played, Origins, and I feel like looking at what I've seen of Valhalla, it feels like, okay, it's like nominally improving on like all these systems, and it's like the characters are very different and stuff. But I feel like, having not played it, I know what I'm getting into almost like entirely. When I start playing that game, it'll just be a very different environment. It'll be a different character. Like, it feels like they'll just be swapping out components. But this is, again, from someone who has not played it.
Yeah,
which is why I'm not like super excited to get into it.
I don't know about that because I played Origins and Odyssey and I like the combat better in Valhalla. So it does feel, I mean, I guess it is nominal improvements, but they were solid improvements that made me think, oh, I like this game more than the previous ones that came before them.
Yeah.
Truthfully, I just like the fantasy less than ever. It's a very personal issue. It's just like, here's the things you're setting me up to do to feel cool while doing, and I just don't want to be a Viking doing axe stuff. That just isn't cool to me.
But do you want to be a Viking building up a town?
Mildly.
Yeah, there we go. I think it's interesting talking about Paper Mario Origami King, because I think somebody, what Kyle or Jeff mentioned, like that Surreal's at a 10 out of 10 on it. Surreal was an 8 out of 10 on it, according to the GameSpot review scale, which I understand is a good score, but he's not off the charts.
That feels like that's unfair.
Yeah, I don't know. Like, considering that none of you have finished Valhalla, I think it's very different. Like, I feel like I love Paper Mario, having put, like however many hours into it. I really do like it, and I think it's consistent the whole way through.
I think I trust the number more than you, Serio.
If you could only speak in numbers from here on out, we'd appreciate it.
I also feel like I was pigeonholed by Pablo's comment of like, well, he set the expectation of it has to be 10 out of 10 or it doesn't make this list.
Yeah, Jeff sent me that message. We've been collaborating on this one to sync Paper Mario.
Well, all I'm saying is Anna's 10 out of 10 on several games.
Oh,
that she's pushing for.
I think. Well. Okay,
I think Kyle thinks the Pathless is the greatest game of all time. So anything less than that.
Guys, look, I don't write reviews anymore, but if I'd reviewed the Pathless, I would have given it a 10 out of 10. Unequivocally, there's no way to prove that, but
7 Remake was going to be a 12 out of 10 is what I was thinking.
It's just so easy for him to say.
Okay, but I think we're doing the thing. We're doing the thing where we're tearing one down unnecesserly right now.
Sure.
Unless we're just desperate to get Valhalla up, which, to be fair, I like Valhalla more than Paper Mario, but so is there anything that we're desperate to move up? I understand, Jeffem, your feelings for Valhalla noted. Anything else that people are like, my God?
Wait, Kyle, how do you feel between Valhalla and Paper Mario?
I'm a Valhalla over Paper Mario, personally.
And Anna, how do you feel about Valhalla versus Paper Mario?
I don't feel like I played enough Paper Mario. Like, I don't feel qualified to call, because they were both games that I was like, oh, I can see nice things in it. And I started playing, and then I never went back to them. So they're both in a really similar space for me. But I think that Valhalla, like, I did actually enjoy the time I spent with it. So that's why I wanted to say that.
Yeah.
There you go.
There's a lot of likes in this room for this game. Yeah.
A lot of likes more than Paper Mario in this room for this game.
I think you're right. Is there there a weaker thing to bump off the list than Paper Mario? Spelunky 2 feels like it's going. Something's making that sucker fall here. Jeffem, would you take Valhalla over Spelunky 2?
Honestly, I was thinking about this the other night, and it feels more like a travesty to not have Valhalla on there than Spelunky 2, even though it's going to be high on my list, and I feel like you're all fools for not playing it and enjoying it. And Leo really let me down by just, I can't play with my friends, so I'm not going to play this game that I called the previous one perfect. But if that's the case, then that's an instance where
I played it by myself and didn't get into it. So I'm hoping that when I play with my friends, it will be perfect again.
Leo,
I'm saying that I didn't play it. That I may have misrepresented that. So put like 10 hours in.
Let the record show Valhalla has bumped up, Spelunky has moved down, and Paper Mario has dodged a bullet. I finished If Found over the weekend. I don't know if anybody else.
That was the other one that I wanted people to talk about because I feel like that was.
I played that this weekend.
Yeah, Leo, what'd you think?
I loved it.
Yeah.
I think it's super cool. And I played it on Switch just as you theorized. The erasing with the finger is more of a beautiful feeling than I expected. The way it specifically works is much more satisfying.
Was there this is the dumbest note to start an If Found conversation on. But it's a visual novel about a trans woman in the 90s in Ireland, just for setting the table for If Found here. Did you have any jank with the erasing? Because I was playing, I had a beautiful setup where it was like right by the Christmas tree. I was all bundled up, and then I had my MacBook, and I was just using like the touchpad for it. And every once in a while, I was a little bit like putting a weird hard edge and having some weird jank with the erasing. But how was it on Switch?
Perfect.
Okay. Oh, good. Okay, so you enjoyed it a lot.
Yeah, I definitely would put it on this list before some of the other ones.
Yeah, I really enjoyed my time with it. I'm glad, because I played like the first 15 minutes, but I'm glad I took the time for it. And I recommend, if you're in the mood for an interesting story this year in gaming, it's not that, this is a terrible way to explain it. It's not that dry. You might think like, okay, this is just like, okay, it's going to be just a journey of self-discovery. I got it. But like, it's so much more interesting than that. And it's bold and it gets weird. It's structurally more interesting than I was expecting. And it definitely got me emotional at several chunks there. I think the ending is really fantastic. There's a part of me,
put it very well last time of like, it's a visual novel that needs to be a video game. That like it couldn't be anything else.
Absolutely.
Did anyone else play it?
That's fine.
I didn't play it because I got sucked down a different rabbit hole this weekend.
All right. I can't wait to hear what that is.
Yeah.
I like It Found a lot. I feel like this is again flawed, but I was thinking if I played this in February, would I feel passionate about putting it on this list? Is it just the recency effect? Because I think it's a very cool little 2-hour experience. But definitely one of the more unique experiences of the year, for a video game here. Cyril and Leah, how are you feeling about it going on this list?
I mean, I played it in like March or April, and I'm still pretty hot on it. Like,
okay,
that I use that as like a litmus test of like whenever a new game kind of entered my kind of loose top 10, I was like, but is it better than It Found? Was kind of like, it ended up being like a stronger gatekeeper on my list than I kind of expected throughout the year.
Interesting.
Yeah, I also was considering the recency effect, but that's a pretty good test of it.
Yeah. Leo, do you think it should be a lock on this list?
Yes. But I know that's because there's a lot of these games on here that I feel nothing for.
Yeah. Okay,
so I don't know if my love will dethrone them.
Let's bring down Kentucky Route Zero and let's put up If Found.
No.
Okay.
What's up with Immortal Phoenix Rising?
Ooh.
You don't like that?
Yeah, how immortal is it?
I really like it a lot. Yeah.
I do.
You think it's funny?
Sometimes I think the 20% hit rate of making me chuckle is charming enough for me. That element of the game, which I understand people kind of point to as being a like annoying, like it's just like occasionally I get a chuckle out of it, and that's great. You know what I mean? Like it's not bad. It doesn't bring down the game in any way for me. It's my podcast game. It's like what I am actively playing right now that I'm having a great time with. I think just like being able to take it at my own pace has really made me enjoy it and happy to take my time with it. So yeah, I like it. I'm a fan.
It feels like that comfort food gaming, which I remember is also how you described Ghost of Tsushima. But Ghost of Tsushima seems like excellent comfort food, and Immortals Phoenix Rising feels like pretty fine comfort food to me.
Yeah. I think that's fair. Like it's not one that I'm trying to push up into the top 10. Like it's one I'm happy to see it in the lower 10 personally. But it's one of my favorites this year.
There's a very inviting abyss just below that lower 10. I don't know if I can interest you in it.
Oh. I like it more than Paper Mario.
I'm so sorry for Paper Mario. It's a cool game. The writing's fantastic.
I knew this would be our darkest chapter.
What about Crash Bandicoot? Are there lots of people who love Crash Bandicoot?
I love Crash Bandicoot. I love it for this bottom
one.
10s.
So you're tied with like several games.
Crash is I played and beat it. I don't have nostalgia for Crash, and my big takeaway was almost like your Immortals argument here, Hanson, where I was like, yeah, it's solid, Like I think there's an element of nostalgia of like having finally like a new fun Crash game. For me, it was just like a decent platformer that I liked.
North of decent. Come on. Don't decent me on this one, Kyle.
It's like he's decent.
Like, Kyle's like thinking about his taxes right now. I don't know what this look in his eyes is saying. It's like, did I leave the front door open? Also,
I guess, you know what, Hanson? North of decent. Yeah.
Hey,
I would.
We got north and decent out of this guy. And Suriel from your
is the 21st.
Yeah, and the 20 is for games we reserve for north of decent.
Yes.
Suriel, you enjoyed your time with Crash, right?
Yeah, I would go as far as to say that I liked my time with it.
Yeah.
All right.
I haven't finished it, and I've enjoyed it, but like it's sort of the same way Kyle was with Immortals, where like it's my podcast game. Like I use it, I play it primarily when I want to listen to a podcast, and that's like the driving impetus of like, oh, I'm really backed up on these episodes of like this Twin Peaks podcast that I'm listening to.
Wait, what is
play Crash?
What is this Twin Peaks?
I bought a box set of Twin Peaks, and there's the Idle Thumbs Network had like a Twin Peaks rewatch podcast, so I've been using Crash to get through that podcast. But insofar as I've been playing it in that way, I have like very few complaints about that game. But there is no drive outside of that for me to like, okay, I want to play Crash. That's not the poll.
It's more about David Lynch's directing.
Exactly. It's like the Robert Frost parts of Crash, I think, are underrated. But
I like it. Cyril, please do an essay like, drawing all the lines.
That's right.
Yeah.
I really think Crash is like the Bobby. But I enjoy it. I like it more than some of the games on the list, for sure.
That feels like one love,
more
two
than Paper
likes.
Mario, though.
Well, come on, you can't put it up against the most hot seated game.
That's what I was trying to set him up with, but
what did Paper Mario do to you?
Cyril, it had the crime of being
Paper Mario. We're saving Paper Mario by poking at
Crash.
I was
trying to save Paper Mario by throwing you a bone with this Crash Bandicoot business.
But that's the thing, is like it's weird. Like those two are probably, looking at this list, probably the two that I would have at the top of this section of the list. Is Paper Mario and then Crash.
Interesting.
But it's mostly because I don't have a strong affinity for anything else on there. Maybe Persona. Right. I haven't played it.
Yeah.
Then do we want to poke holes at Spider-Man again?
Spider-Man is the game we all enjoyed.
Yeah.
That's the box quote right there.
I feel like we went through it before, and Anna kind of brought it in and saved it again. It's that game that we all had a very solid, good time with, but no one's screaming about it. And I still think that matters for this list. It's a very well-made game that we enjoyed our time with. It's tough to say a bad thing about it.
Wait, but okay, tough to say a bad thing. But how much further north of decent is Miles Morales?
I think it's north of decent. Oh, this is north of decent. You can tell from the snow; it's pretty far north.
And it's north of decent in ways that are new to it, and not just because the first one was good.
It's a question?
I'm asking.
See, I don't know. I feel like it's an extension of that. Like, you know what I mean? Yeah. Like the big coolest upgrade to me was the Venom attack, which is like an attack. But otherwise, it just like iterates on what was really cool about Spider-Man 2 or Spider-Man 1.
Right. It's certainly, the way we talked about in the deepest dive is that,
just to be clear.
Yeah. I like the gameplay more than 2018 Spider-Man, and I like the story less.
That's fair. Yeah. That's fair. Wait, so what are we replacing it with?
I feel like we're doing that thing again where we're tearing stuff down. And
I thought everyone was pretty hot on If Found.
Yeah.
I
find a place for If Found on the list.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
so people
considering like what's on the bubble for my favorites on this list of like Valhalla, Miles Morales, Crash Bandicoot 4 seemed like bubblers. I don't think I'd put If Found above any of those.
Should we have, I'm hesitant to bring it up because I really love it, the Astros Playroom discussion?
Yeah, I think that's a great one, Kyle.
I don't want it to be written off because it was pre-installed on the PS5 and it's not super long.
Yeah.
But I just loved it. Like it just like when I got my PS5, I was like, let me try this. And like Astros Playroom took over and I didn't stop playing it till I beat it, despite having a stack of really awesome games like right next to it. I adored it. It just plays so well. It's so charming. It's just cool. I want to revisit it. I want to get like the platinum trophy in it,
Yeah, it is great. There's no doubt about it. Thinking about Leo's question about Spider-Man as it relates to Astro's Playroom, I love Astro's Playroom, but in every way it feels like a lesser version of Astrobot Rescue Mission
Rescue
in
Mission.
VR, which I loved so much. And this feels like, this is a great smaller serving of what I loved about that other game from 2018, which makes it a tough candidate for this list.
Yeah, I feel similarly, but I think I might also give the edge to Astro's Playroom over Miles Morales.
I would personally, yeah. There's more creativity going on in that game. And I think in some ways I liked it more than the VR game, honestly.
Really?
Like, yeah. I mean, I think if it had been like the VR game was longer, I mean, that's the biggest knock I have against it. I wish there was more of it,
Serial, this is obvious. How do you feel about Astro's Playroom versus If Found?
I like If Found considerably more.
But Astro's Playroom, you got lasers and you shoot them at the ground.
Mm-hmm.
There's a spaceship.
Yeah, I don't think there are lasers necessarily in If Found.
I think Astro's Playroom was as an emotional journey for you guys playing If Found. No, I have no clue. I did literally download If Found on my Switch though while we were having this discussion.
Oh, good.
I was just envisioning Astro's head and the guillotine, and I was really ready for it.
It'd be adorable as its little eyes blinked out.
Yeah.
Just pin in this. Feelings noted.
Sure.
Leo, Gears Tactics versus If Found.
I'll chime in. I played some Gears Tactics over the weekend.
Yeah.
And I'm in the like camp.
Ooh, you're a liker.
I see why Leo liked it, and I agree that it's like out of all those games that said, "Hey, XCOM was fun. We should make an XCOM with kind of a little bit of a different format." This one feels like XCOM was fun. Let's try and do some new ideas and throw some actual like gameplay mechanics into the tactics part of that are a little different, and so.
And make the gameplay like feel satisfying in a way that I didn't think was possible in a tactics game where it's all, decision making. But it really made me be like, God, I've played a tactics game that stutter on every move for the past 10 years. Mm-hmm. This is so smooth.
Yeah, it's nice, and I especially like you can kind of chain extra moves where it's like if you execute someone with one of the execution moves, that will give everyone else in your crew an extra action point, and you don't have to choose between like moving and just shooting. And so there's kind of a build up there that makes it more engaging than other turn-based ones. So that one's not just a Leo's the only one who played it and loved it 10 out of 10.
I mean, I also did like it. Like I ended up not sticking with it, but what I played of it, I really liked.
Leo,
like, the only thing. Yeah.
Leo, if you had to compare your passion for If Found versus Gears Tactics.
If I had to compare, it'd be Gears Tactics. But I would love to have both on here, of course.
Okay.
Can we have the Watch Dogs Legion discussion?
Ooh, yeah.
I almost didn't want to. I feel like that was like the third rail when it came to the. So I'm glad you're bringing it up.
Yeah.
What is everybody else in the room's feelings on it?
I just watched you stream those 2 hours.
Well, you know my story, Leo, right?
What?
I was texting you about it, and then you said, it's good. So I went and drove to the store to get it, and I got a flat tire on the way home. So my impressions will forever be colored by that.
Emergent gameplay.
But actually playing it, I played, I don't know, like the first hour or two. It didn't hook me in a big way, but I totally acknowledge that I haven't given it its due yet, and I got totally distracted by other things because of just the release schedule. I want to go back to it. I want to play, it's maybe the GTA comparison isn't totally apt. It really seems like its own unique thing, but I want like a modern city open world game to play in my next gen console, and I haven't really had a chance to dig into that yet. So that's all I can really offer you, unfortunately.
I would axe Gears before Watch Dogs, based on my personal enjoyment.
Spent like 4 hours with it, which isn't like a lot, but out of like, and again, it's hard because there were a lot of games that came up during that period, but just as personal enjoyment goes, I feel like I have to compare it to those other games. Enjoyed Valhalla more, enjoyed Like a Dragon more. I had pretty much, I don't know, the gimmick of being anyone, like again, it's gameplay preference. Do you like, like building up characters and like skill trees and finding unique outfits? Like it's very much like, honestly, you could play it like a sim game at some points, but like it wasn't for me. I'm
trying to figure out, Leo, I know your love for it before it came out, and I understand it's obviously not hitting those marks that were your highest ambitions, but I'm still trying to figure out what your level is of, I know you like it a lot now, but how passionate are you about it, and where do you feel it deserves a spot on this list?
That's the thing. I wanted to know what everybody else thought about it, because I feel like there are definitely other people in this room whose love for their titles they're championing exceeds my current love for Legion.
Wow.
Like, to shock the world by saying this, I mean, it did fall flat in a lot of places. Having put 40 hours into it and taken, months to think about it, it's like, how much points does it earn for trying? Being so insanely ambitious. Obviously, it took them years to get this system up and running, but then the gameplay wasn't ambitious enough to benefit from it.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you can play as anyone, so the first person you start with has to be able to beat the game, versus like actually complicated design that you have to use that system to get past. It just didn't have the confidence. They had to make it a Ubisoft game that anybody can play anyway and not be disappointed by, like, if they don't want to engage with the cool thing they're doing.
Yeah.
And I think that hurt it a lot overall as a game. And I don't know. It'll be on my top 10, but I don't know if it'll be in the top 3 or top 5.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I think that's going to be the case for a lot of these games. For our personal top 10 lists, this seems like we're fighting over the 7s to 9s on our list.
I'm saying Watch Dogs Legion can go if Spider-Man can go and Immortals can go and things like that.
I mean, I'm okay. I want to say I liked Spider-Man. I thought it was good. I think it's a good example of like what sort of like AAA games can look like in a way that's respectful to people's time.
Yeah. And
it has great combat like the first Spider-Man, but I am not going to like lose myself defending. So just to also, in the spirit of us giving up some of our, like you said, 7s to 6s or whatever.
I think we're also falling into it again, though, of just, are we tearing it down are we all just trying to make room for If Found? It seems like we're all, I could lose it, I guess, if we really want to get If Found up, but I don't think that there's the driving passion for If Found has to go up over any of these.
I would rather have If Found than Watch Dogs Legion.
Oh, okay. There it is.
I mean, the passion for If Found seems to overtake.
Yeah. Okay.
Before we do cement the move, though, like, how do we feel about the path list? Because I know Leo played it and I played it.
Good point.
Just so we're talking about everything.
Rounding out all of them. Yeah.
Kyle, you see the hottest.
It's my hill that I have my sword out of my hilt, raised, pushed up against my chest. I'm standing high on this hill.
Is that how that works? Okay.
I believe so.
You don't have
the hill I will die on.
The idea is that you fight on the hill. You don't just people don't just come into the hill and you're like, well, time to die.
yeah. No, but just it is my favorite. Like Ghost and Tsushima and like the Pathless are like my two big ones that I want to make sure are somewhere on this list and like hopefully higher. But like I really love the Pathless a lot.
I played an hour and a half of it and beat the first boss. And my question is, do you get more upgrades than extra eagle flaps?
Not really. There's like one final one that you get, but it is definitely more about the fluidity of moving through the world rather than any kind of like RPG mechanic of leveling up. Like it's kind of like Hanson, what's the game? The Breath of the Wild, where you're climbing the mountain.
Short Hike.
Short Hike. It's kind of like the Short Hike upgrade system, where it's like you find these things and it lets you get higher and higher. And then at the end of the game, there is like one final upgrade. But yes, it is. You're not going to get sort of that ramp up of abilities. It's more about just like getting into the flow of like swimming around the world is like the best way I can describe it. You're getting these like little bursts of speed, and then all the bosses are really cool, and every boss fight is unique. Like they look kind of similar because they're all based off this like fiery demon kind of idea, but the mechanics of defeating each boss are different, and then the chase through the forest that's catching on fire is just always thrilling and awesome.
The chase is super cool.
Sound. Yeah.
What I played of it, the movement was amazing, but the puzzles I was like immediately not interested in. It's a lot of putting heavy stuff onto buttons and things that I can't believe they're still making games about.
Have you played Immortals Phoenix Rising? That put heavy stuff on buttons in the game.
Yeah. You can avoid some of that stuff, but it doesn't feel like it's presented to you in such a way where you can avoid it. You know what I mean? But it feels like you need to do it. You don't really, but it's like I like that stuff because I'm like a Zelda boy who likes to put boxes on switches, but I understand that being a knock against the game for you personally, for sure.
Looking at this list and feeling it, just immersing myself in your emotions. I'm an empath is what I'm trying to say. I feel like even though it didn't live up to the hype, like Leo's love of Watch Dogs Legion has to be more than the collective love of Immortals Phoenix Rising, right? I feel like if Found's going to take anything slot, it should be Immortals Phoenix Rising. And I played them both.
People seem to like Immortals Phoenix Rising.
How are we all of a sudden like have to axe Watch Dogs or Immortals when we had like 2 or 3 other ones where we were like, one person liked it, a couple people meh on it.
Because I feel like Immortals is just an agreeable game. I just feel like it's the lowest bar of, yes, this is solid, but no one's that excited about it.
On that same note, though, like if we swapped If Found for Miles Morales, would anyone fight hard for it? Whereas I think Kyle would fight for Immortals.
I think
that's a good point.
Yeah,
I enjoyed Miles Morales more than If Found.
Would you fight to keep it on the list over If Found?
That pause speaks volumes. Get out of here.
Is that happening?
Me and Kyle both answered faster for Immortals than you just whiffed your way through that.
Yeah.
Have some confidence, Hanson.
Yeah.
This is a classic. Are you the imposter?
See, it all comes back.
Is this happening? Is If Found going up and Spider-Man coming down? Are we all feeling okay with that?
I would be okay with that.
Because I enjoyed my time with Miles Morales. But if I'm in the minority...
like it's not a bad... Like, it's not that there's anything, like, wrong with it in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
If anything, like Anna said, I respect the way it respected my time. Like the fact that I was able to get into that game and, like, basically marathon it in a day, I think was like a point in its favor. Mm-hmm. I just don't know that I have anything, like, super glowing besides, like, hey, I like a lot of these characters. Mm-hmm. Like, they're doing what they should. Like, the ending moment is touching, but, like... It just, like, I kind of just didn't really think about it after I finished it, so.
But am I the only person who played both, though?
No, I played both.
Okay.
I've played and beaten both.
Okay. And you take If Found for sure.
I would definitely take If Found.
Look, it seems like the passion for If Found, yeah.
It's more than a lot of these.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying is you could,
all right.
Maybe bump it up more.
All right. Miles Morales is down. If Found is up. The bottom 10 now looks like Astro's Playroom. Dodge that freaking bullet. The Pathless, Watch Dogs Legion, Gears Tactics, Crash Bandicoot 4, It's About Time, Paper Mario The Origami King, Immortals, Phoenix Rising, If Found, Persona 5 Royal, and Assassin's Creed Valhalla. Oh boy. You know what this reminds me of, everybody? It reminds me of a story. Leo, do you have a little campfire you could light up? Because I got a wonderful story to tell.
Of course.
Maybe the last campfire, if you can track it down.
Yeah, do you want to start up the last campfire? Okay, great. Leo, sit back and relax. I'm going to tell you the story about a wonderful place. It's my favorite place under the sun, and it's patreon.com/MinnMax with 2 N's. You wouldn't believe how many amazing different options are there for you if you want to support MinnMax for creating content this year. It's a wonderful way to say thanks. And if you support us at any tier, you get access to the Discord. Support us at any tier, And we'll send you a message and talk to you about what you'd like for the future of MinnMax, all that fun stuff. Do you want me to make you a s'more, Leo?
Yeah, please.
Oh, great. Also, do you like puzzle games?
Sure.
Well, good. Then check
Are
out...
they box puzzles?
No. Well, they're puzzles that include squares, but squares aren't boxes. The point is, Opposwitch is now available on Xbox, everybody. Opposwitch features over 90 handcrafted levels and a randomizer for never-ending puzzles. Inspired by classic games such as Lights Out and Lights Out and Hexic, it's a logic game that's fun for the whole family. And get this, Opposwitch was developed by Rich McLaughlin, longtime supporter of MinnMax. Drop in the Discord to ask him about Opposwitch, indie game development, or just thank him for supporting the show. The best part? It's just $5. Unwrap some fun this holiday season with Opposwitch on Xbox. Jeffem has this to say about Opposwitch.
It's fun.
There it is, everybody. Also thanks to PrettyGoodPrinting.com. They're an online print shop that offers flyers, invitations, stickers, banners, and more. They say, I've spent years opening and managing print shops for others, yada, yada, yada. I figured it's finally time to do it for myself. Soon the website will have customizable templates as well as themed sticker packs with custom designs. If there's something specific you need, feel free to reach out via the contact page at PrettyGoodPrinting.com. Again, if you want flyers, invitations, stickers, banners, and you can use the promo code MinnMax for 10% off of your order at PrettyGoodPrinting.com. Also, hey, check out This Week in Video Games for your regular fix on the latest reviews, features, or interviews from the world of gaming. Whether you're into next-gen platforms, indie gems, or interviews with industry experts, This Week in Video Games has you covered. This Week in Video Games also specializes in Destiny 2 content, covering everything from the latest goings-on in Beyond Light to useful guides for exotic weapons and also builds too. If you want to level up your Guardian and get hold of all the best weapons, armor, and mods the game has to offer, then search This Week in Video Games on YouTube and subscribe for daily Destiny updates. If you want your gaming content with a British twist, then please search out This Week in Video Games on YouTube or on your favorite podcast app. Thanks for your support, everybody, and thank you to the support of I Am 8-Bit. They want you to know that at their store right now, they have every vinyl soundtrack possibility for the Persona 5 soundtrack and Persona 5 Royal. Please check it out. Believe it or not, it looks awesome. If you're going to have like a vinyl soundtrack, I can't think of a better one than the Persona 5 soundtrack and the Persona 5 Royal soundtrack.
I'm looking this up right now.
It looks awesome. The Royal soundtrack comes with a mystery color disc, interactive die-cut window jacket, luxurious gold foil inner sleeves, and has music, obviously, by the Atlas Sound Team. And if you order it before December 31st, 2020, you get a free Hymn of the Soul 7-inch. Very cool. And you can use the promo code MINMAXIMUS for 10% off everything in I Am 8-Bit store under $100. Show them some love because they've been very generous with us and with the MinnMax community by giving out a ton of great prizes, including this week, we're going to play some more back of the box trivia. Game case trivia. And the winner in the Backstage Pass watching us live is going to win from I Am 8-Bit store the Last Guardian soundtrack on vinyl. Another fantastic soundtrack. Okay, so we have people watching us live. You can watch us record all of our content live if you're at that $10 tier on Patreon. Hello, everybody. Hello, everybody watching us live. Thank you for being here. Are you ready for some game case trivia? The winner receives I Am 8-Bit's Last Guardian soundtrack on vinyl. So I'm going to be describing a video game based on the back of the box. You buzz in by lobbing your guess, and the winner will get this amazing soundtrack. Okay, here we go. Goes a little something like this. Floor it, or get out of the way. Blank and many other characters from the blank world star in this high-speed racing game filled with magical spells, special abilities, and challenging courses. Testing out speedy new vehicles, Blank and Blank set out to collect pieces of the legendary Blue Crystal, which they can only gather by winning hair-raising races against their blank friends. Lot of guesses, all incorrect so far. Diddy Kong Racing, Sonic Team Racing, Jack X, Garfield Kart, Sonic Racing, all incorrect so far. Control 8 unique vehicles.
One of my guesses was in that batch.
Control 8 unique vehicles and select from magical abilities like Dash or Barrier. Use offensive magic, very offensive magic, such as fireballs and thunder to stop opponents.
The canceled Austin Powers kart racer.
Race head-to-head in versus and relay modes, a total of 5 different modes. Unlock hidden characters and tracks. Customize a character in edit parameters mode. Edit parameters mode after completing story mode.
Oh, I bet it's Mario Kart indoor circuit racing.
So close. But the actual winner is Mike Masiazak, who guesses Chocobo Racing on PlayStation 1. Excellent guess. Mike, congratulations. Send me a message on Discord and we will ship out that Last Guardian vinyl soundtrack. Congratulations. Do you all ever play that game? It's underrated. It is very cool. You like level up the different spells as you go around. It's like, one of those early weird offshoots of the Final Fantasy franchise that's surprisingly good. Okay, let's see. We got one more. The winner of this round of Game Case Trivia is going to get a code for Opposwitch on Xbox. Are you ready for this? Oh boy. Oh, is this going to be tricky? This one's going to be too hard. That seems not fun. Hang on, let me find the best one.
The best one.
Oh, you want the best one?
Yeah, please.
Okay, here it is. Blank. The name of the game.
Oh, I got them.
In a dark time, an epic adventure dawns. Evil is slowly covering the world. Forces of darkness are pursuing the lost art of alchemy. And as they draw ever closer to their foul purpose, mankind hangs in the balance. You and your companions are the last hope, armed with noble weapons, magical synergy, and a host of elemental creatures. You must find a way to stem the evil tide.
Is that PSY energy?
Yes, it is, Leo.
Okay.
Oh, good question.
Yeah. No one's ever asked about spelling before, but very smart. An enormous RPG shines on the blank with incredible graphics, an engrossing storyline, and a huge world to explore. You'll be playing long after the sun sets. Unbelievable magic! Gather the 4 types of elemental creatures, fire, water, wind, and earth, and combine them in different ways for some of the most awe-inspiring magic spells ever seen. Tim Laro guesses Golden Sun. Congratulations, Tim Laro. Killing it.
Oh.
Well done, man. Well done.
Yeah.
Everyone's
I played that in
loving
the last year. I was guessing Galarians.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Weird. Yeah, I was debating whether or not to give it with just saying Game Boy Advance, but it's like, I guess I'll keep it cryptic. But there's a lot of like sun stuff in here, like the sun setting, and Orbis RPG shines, and Adventure dawns.
Yeah, that was the one that kind of tipped me off.
They're pointing out Johnny Spade actually guessed it first.
Oh, Johnny Spade. I'm sorry I missed that. Congratulations, Johnny Spade. Send me a message on Discord and we'll ship out a game code for Opposwitch. Thanks to Rich McLaughlin for giving those away. That's very sweet. Thanks for playing trivia with us, everybody. We appreciate it. All right. Ready to get back into this sucker?
Yeah.
We're not done?
I think we're done.
Just hit the random button.
I think we got it. I think we got it.
I think this.
Shut it down. Shut it down.
Well, here we have it. I mean, these are technically the 2 10s, but some rascal got them all out of order. Can you put them back correctly? All right, so I guess...
Do we take that break because we're done with the second 10?
I think so.
I think we have the 20, right? The 2 10s, we just have to rank them at this point, right?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
I have a thought about the second 10 that I...
Oh, Liam. All right, yeah.
I feel like we need to have this conversation,
Please.
at least. Some like Crash 4 or Immortals. I understand they weren't podcast games for everybody, but for some of us they were.
Yeah.
I love a good podcast game.
Right.
Big part of my gaming library. Big part of the genres of games I like.
Mm-hmm.
But if we're thinking of the 20 best games of the year,
Mm-hmm.
can we not find 20 that we didn't want to do something else while playing?
I just think it fits that type of game. You know, if there's not a lot of story happening. I mean, I listened to a podcast the entire time I was playing Animal Crossing New Horizons. Just because I was listening to a podcast to that game doesn't drag it down. And yeah, I absolutely love Crash Bandicoot 4. It's not in that camp of, oh, I guess it was something to do while I listened to podcasts. It was above and beyond that to me. I think it's a really great platformer.
I mean, I do use it as like a positive thing, but like I would be happy with Immortal. I don't have to put on a podcast to play that game. I find the sort of the world interesting. I just love leaping from a high height and pulling out my wings and flying around and like finding some horses and stuff like that. Like podcast game is just another sort of tick in the positive thing, the list of boxes for me. Anyway. So I think you raise a fair point.
But, and if we're going back to Helltown, population Leo Vader, I don't think we put these puppies next to each other. Where does your Fuser versus Watch Dogs Legion love lay? That sentence.
My love for Fuser's higher.
That's not on the list. Should we swap?
I didn't notice Watch Dogs Legion was still on the list. I said we could remove it.
Yeah, I know. That's the funniest thing was when Leo was like, "Oh yeah, actually, Watch Dogs Legion cannot be on the list," and then we got sidetracked.
Because I think he's being modest. I was trying to just gauge
you
the
were
love.
empathetic. That's right. Yeah.
I would rather see Fuser on the list than Watch Dogs Legion. If that's an option for me, that I can make that switch, then yes.
It's not because I really like Watch Dogs Legions too, and I have no love for Fuser.
We completely forgot that like Leo is not the only person who liked that game. Right?
Yeah, I liked Fuser.
So you got to fight about it.
So what do you think about that, Jeff?
You guys chucked Fuser so early in this conversation.
Because Leo's a humble, nice man. He's willing to make sacrifices for the team.
Well, can we just replay the argument that he made when he sacrificed it last?
We know the spoke with the sacrifice was it was in the top 10 originally, and I said, yeah that's a coincidence, and then we moved it out.
Okay. I mean, Leo, would you like to fight Jeffem for the honor of having Fuser in there above Watch Dogs Legion?
No, just get rid of Paper Mario if you're going to start messing with...
Oh, no, we had already moved on beyond this. Can we live with this as the 210s? Is everybody happy enough?
I love it. That's my favorite list.
I love it too.
There are good games on there.
Leo?
It seems weird that the events of this year that, I don't know, were convincing me to leave Watch Dogs Legion on the list.
Yeah, that is pretty telling.
But if Jeffem
likes it. Jeffem's a fan.
Clutching it.
I am.
Okay. So Fuser's replacing Immortals then, just like that. We're all in agreement on that?
Yeah, Paper Mario, out the door.
God damn. Okay, I think this is it. I think this is looking pretty good. This feels right so far. All right, now let's just start looking at maybe ordering the bottom 10. And if we... Leo, you seem so enraged. What was that face?
Oh, I just noticed Valhalla was also still on here.
Jeffem is... You know what? Jeffem is really good at clinging on to his babies.
Yeah.
No, look. I made a great case for Valhalla when I had me and then 3 other people who said they liked it more than Paper Mario.
That is true. That is certainly true.
So I feel good about where that one is.
Yeah.
And Lou, you only didn't like it because you don't like Vikings, for fuck's sake. What kind of argument against that is
an invalid thing, though? If we're measuring how much we like a thing, like we can.
Yeah, well, then measure the other 4 people who liked it because they played it and they don't have some weird thing against Vikings.
They're bad people.
Well, of course, that's why they're fun.
Well, spoiler.
That we can all agree on.
Cool. I know sports.
Whole new thing, and we have so many good because they were 5 years doing a dedicated thing that we all knew, and they put a ton of money into it, and it was completely unchallenging to the industry. And Fuser is something I didn't think games could possibly do.
But it already did with DropMix.
Sounds convincing to me.
Not at the level, but that's
more.
Iteration. The same degree here.
Much bigger degree.
Okay, but it's still the same ballpark of iterating on an idea from before.
It is a thing that is a sequel to a thing, yes.
Game and match, my son. I mean...
I think...
Yeah?
I think something that we need to think about is just because a game had a big budget doesn't mean that it should be on this list, right? Is that Valhalla? Like,
I don't think anyone's. that is certainly not the argument I'm making for it. Like,
Yeah.
I really liked it.
I
And
guess.
three of the other you guys who played it were enjoying what you played of it.
Yeah, that was me. That was me who said that. I was one of those people.
None of those people felt compelled to finish it, considering that they had enough time to do it.
Sure, 3 of them liked it more than Paper Mario and would rather have Paper Mario taken off the list.
Hey, if there was one person who had finished Valhalla, maybe this would be a different argument.
Here's the deal. We're tearing each other down again. For what? For what? I ask of thee.
I think just for Fuser, right?
For Fuser, which, Leo, I mean, are you dying that Fuser isn't on this list? You haven't brought it up till right now, really.
He was willing to sacrifice Legion, so I think he probably is leaning that way, right?
Let the man speak.
Okay.
I don't know. Yeah, Leo, how you feeling?
I wanted to drop Legion for it. I still would like to. It feels wrong to me that, yes. I want Fuser on this list more than anything else on the bottom 10, for sure.
Coming up now, Leo. You're killing us.
It's honestly, I think it's Hansen's fault. He's the one who saw that and said, like,
you're being too empathetic.
I'm just being more thorough.
There's the old passion ranking of Jeffem's Watch Dogs passion versus Leo's Fuser passion, you know? Fuser seems a little higher to me.
Yeah, but Leo also loves Watch Dogs Legion.
I don't care about that element of the
I see.
For the 1v1 purposes.
There's no second Fuser person though, right?
I like Fuser,
but not as much as Drop Mix.
Correct.
Well, I think the relevant question is, do you like it more than Valhalla?
No, I like Valhalla more than Fuser. I'm sorry, Leo.
Yeah. I just, who cares? Who cares shouting out Assassin's Creed Valhalla? They don't need that.
Yeah, they don't need it, but if we're judging our enthusiasm for these games, it gets messy.
My enthusiasm for Fuser is higher than any of yours for Valhalla.
Correct.
Yeah, and I will say, like, I had the chance to play Valhalla, I just didn't because I wasn't interested. It is like one of the games that is on my backlog, but it is not super far up there in terms of my own personal.
Four of us had the chance to play Fuser and we didn't.
Jeff, Valhalla, look, I'm not pulling the trigger. I'm just pointing a gun at these two. You figure out which one you're going to jump in front of, Immortals or Valhalla.
Why are you bringing up Immortals?
I just think it's the weakest of this batch.
You're picking, but you're picking ones that multiple people liked versus we got one person.
Yeah.
For this and for Paper Mario. I'm sorry, but that's another one person one.
Paper Mario has become a punchline, but it's like, I mean, I know Sir loves it, but like
other people
really
had criticisms for it.
I just think it's weird that we're fighting for a game that none of us have finished.
Yeah.
When we had plenty of time to do it, and that all of you were sidetracked for whatever reasons for individual things of like, I could put this down and pick something back up. I get that you guys all like it, but it just seems like you all just want it there because like that was a game I happened to choose that time and we liked it.
But I'm sorry, it's like a 50-hour game that I've put 20 fun hours into, and there's still so many other games that are like, I can't imagine a world where I go back to Valhalla and it's like, oh, actually this sucks. And that invalidates the 20 hours of fun that I had with it so far.
There's also a world where you get back into it and you like realize like, okay, the things that I really like the 25 don't stretch out into 60 or 70. Cause I think that's a thing that happens.
How many hours of fun do I have to have until a game qualifies for the list?
Well, shit, like you can have any number, but I just think it's weird that like I think it does say something that none of you felt compelled to stick with a game.
Will say the story from Valhalla like did not pull me in like at all. Like I don't want to be too harsh.
No, it's the world. Yeah.
Yeah. Like
I thought it also said you'd rather have Paper Mario off the list than Valhalla.
Yeah.
But I don't feel passionately about Valhalla. I just thought it was a decent game, right? I think that's part of the problem is like we have like a decent amount of people who feel pretty neutrally about, you know, Phoenix Rising, Valhalla.
I know, but we're to the point where it's like people have criticisms about Paper Mario and they don't like it. And
what are they? What are they?
What
are besides like?
I mean, for me, I just didn't really feel like compelled to move forward. And I'm not a Paper Mario purist. I'm not the kind of guy that's like, it's not Paper Mario if it doesn't have an RPG. I just felt the puzzles were just like, oh, I can do them or I can't do them, and it doesn't matter either way. And I don't find them engaging enough to do on their own. And now they're just hurdles to get into the way of the story, which is like
also a series of smaller hurdles,
individual lines of dialogue, but not in a broader sense. Like that's the only thing I really like about the game is the humor. Ultimately, I don't know, and I just like where I haven't finished. I know it's apples and oranges, of course, but like Assassin's Creed Valhalla, I'm pretty confident I will go back to. I've deleted Paper Mario off my Switch. Like, I'm good. I'm done. Like I gave it a really big shot and it just did not do anything for me personally.
So we're trying to feel out Leo's level of enthusiasm for Fuser versus Surreal's for Paper Mario. Is that where we're at for like the lone champions here?
I feel like Fuser could knock either of those off personally.
Jeff, would you let Watch Dogs Legion go for Fuser to be on and for us to all be done with this?
No.
And then you'd have Valhalla on?
Oh.
May I
gave up already.
May I venture on this path? I feel like Kyle the Caver Hilliard there. I mean, I think we were just about ready to let Astro's Playroom go before. If we put Fuser on over Astro's Playroom, Kyle, how do you feel about that?
Let's see. So I played it and loved it. Sorrel, you played it. You were ho-hum, right?
I liked it. I'm not going to fight for it.
And I liked it a lot, but I definitely like Rescue Mission more.
And Leo, it didn't really do much for you either, right?
No, yeah, I didn't play very much of it, though.
Okay. And Anna and Jeffem, you guys haven't touched it at all, right? Okay. Well, here's where I'll go. I love Astro's Playroom, but I do genuinely think that Leo loves Fuser more.
Yes.
Than I love Astro's Playroom.
Yeah. I'm in that camp too.
Okay.
Thank you.
So Leo, if you're lying,
my PayPal email address is going to be.
Yeah, you do publicly, so in case anyone else wants to send you money, also.
Okay, Astro's Playroom is off. Fuser is on.
Cool.
Congratulations, Leo.
And I'm sorry I didn't bring it up earlier. I truly didn't think it had a chance until we have been talking through all of these, and it's like, I love Fuser more than some of these.
Yeah.
Got love for him.
I think it's Jeffem's turn to say something nice about Leo.
I love Leo. I've been fighting for one of Leo's biggest games this year for like the past hour.
Well, biggest games before it
honestly,
came out.
Honestly, I feel like I'm sorry I snapped at you a little bit there, Leo, because it felt very definitive the last Fuser conversation that we had. But I'm glad you brought it up, and I feel like the list is genuinely better now that we got one of your ones that you're super passionate about on there.
Thank you, Jeff.
And now
no hard
Hanson,
feelings at all.
Yep.
Hanson, let's what about you, Paper Mario versus Astro's Playroom?
I mean, Astro's Playroom by a mile. But hang on. Kyle, we have to move on. We have to move on.
Oh, we have to move on for me, but not for.
Wow.
Well, you got Pathless and Immortals on here, Kyle.
That is true.
Yeah, I would more likely be. Yeah, I would be more pushing against the Pathless and Astro's Playroom. But
Ooh. Okay, Kyle. Judo, flip to you. Immortals or Astro's Playroom?
Yeah, that's not up for debate.
I thought you were going to say Pathless or Astro's.
Pathless.
No, Pathless is Kyle's Fuser. I mean, Pathless is unassailable in my mind.
Pathless is my Fuser, yes. Which makes sense. Pull that out as a tweet, as like an individual clip, and it'll make sense.
Oh my God.
Very confusing back of the box quote.
Yeah. Talk about confuser.
And we should just stop and lock this in.
Yeah, look, honest to God, the thing for me is Leo and Serial's pessimism about Astro's Playroom, how they were just like, it's fine. That's enough for me to leave it off the list. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Like if there was, if you guys played it and it didn't click with you, enough said. So you're wrong. But
not to argue against myself, it's
Yeah.
definitely just not my type of game. I'm not a platformer
that's true.
guy.
Yeah.
So I would just mean that is, not too much shade towards Astro.
Okay. This upper 10 personally, I mean, we've been debating a lot of things in the lower 10. I feel like at least what's in these two separate boxes is looking pretty good. Does anybody have a strong feeling about something moving up versus something moving down between the two big chunks here?
I mean, I would move Pathless up and move Ori down personally.
Yeah, I was about to say I would be okay with dropping Ori down because, like, I like that game a lot. Is exactly the perfect kind of game that I like to play. But it seems like it. I've played better versions of it, so to speak, in other games, like better Metroidvanias, better combat, better platforming.
It gets a lot of points on how pretty it is, but yeah, game design.
But even like beautiful. Just that. Even I don't know. Like maybe I'm comparing it too much to Hollow Knight. But like, and Hollow Knight does all of those things perfectly, in my opinion. Like, I just I think it.
I think that's fair. I think it lives in the shadow of the original game.
Okay.
Both amazing games, fantastic games, belongs on the 210s, but a little lower.
Can I do a little poking, Hanson?
Yeah.
What about the Pathless versus If Found? Because that sounds like one that people,
sure,
like multiple people were.
Oh, so
really
moving up?
on.
You mean
in place of the Pathless
up top there?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's more just genuinely. I don't know how the fans of If Found felt, but it seemed like
I feel like it's great in the lower 10 personally. I don't know if Cyril or Leo feel strongly another way.
I would take If Found over the Pathless, but
yeah,
I don't know that I'd fight super. Like it feels like Kyle likes the Pathless more than maybe any of us like If Found.
I think that's the case. Yeah.
But maybe we have multiple people who like If Found is maybe the only other argument that I would offer.
Yeah. Yeah.
Have you played both?
What?
Hanson, have you played both If Found and the Pathless?
I've started the Pathless, but I mean, an hour in, I don't really feel. That said, I did stop there. But yeah, the one that sticks out to me on this list is Spiritfarer in the upper 10. I like Spiritfarer, but too low. No. Just in terms of overall buckets. Of maybe
that was
moving
the other
down.
one that I played this weekend.
Yeah.
And it's very recent, but I was pretty hot on that one. I can see why everyone was enjoying that one so much. So
I like that one high up there.
Is there one from the are we doing the thing again where is there one from the bottom bucket that we feel like should move up?
You're right. I think we are doing that. Let's look at this bottom bucket. The lower 10.
I really feel like these are good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
agree.
I'm happy with it, yeah.
I disagree. I think
made
you're
my
right.
swap, but I do like it as it is.
All right,
I would fight you for a long time on Spiritfarer dropping down for sure.
Oh, okay. That's good to know. Well, let's, this is the easy part. Let's organize the lower 10.
I could get used to this.
I could get used to
All
this.
right, here, I know that I've been contentious about it, but look, I insist Paper Mario has to be the bottom 10.
What a gentleman. Personally, if we're going from the bottom up in this 10, I feel like Valhalla is a great bottom of the two 10s.
I would agree with that, but I also know that like you guys all seem to be fairly hot on Valhalla, so I'm fine with keeping Paper Mario at the bottom.
I feel like Paper Mario is a nice flat piece. It just sits on the bottom comfortably.
You're right. You're right.
Don't patronize me.
You're right. You're right.
Oh, Leo's leaving. That's how upset he is.
Okay, so right now for the lower 10, it's going down the list. It's Fuser, Ori, Watch Dogs Legion, Gears Tactics, Crash Bandicoot 4, Immortals, Phoenix Rising, If Found, Persona 5 Royal, Assassin's Creed Valhalla, Paper Mario: The Origami King. I feel this is the fun part where it's me just saying I feel this way and then seeing who squeals the loudest. No. Is Watch Dogs Legion and Immortals moving down this list?
I think Watch Dogs Legion could go above Assassin's Creed, below Persona 5.
Okay. That seems great.
I get the sense that I'm speaking as someone who did not play it, but I feel like If Found could go up a couple slots.
Yeah,
Am I crazy?
I
Oh yeah.
agree.
Okay. Go
Just
up.
from hearing everyone talk about it.
Okay. Where is the passion level for Ori? Who's the biggest Ori champion?
I assumed there was one.
I assume too, but
what if Ori gets
the Emperor has no clothes here?
I was kind of I'm like I feel like I was the champion. I think I was the one that elected it to be on the list. I like it where it is. Like the top 10 seemed high to me,
yeah,
but high in the lower 10 feels right because it's such a beautiful game that plays so well and has a compelling story and like,
yeah.
You know, it's one of those games that was like when I started, because I think a lot of us play multiple games at the same time. Ori was one that I locked into. I was like, well, I'm not playing anything else till I finish this.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, I agree.
So that's where I'm at with Ori.
Okay.
Even though I dinged it a little bit, I thoroughly enjoyed my time with it. I haven't finished it, but like I'll go back and finish it.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm almost, I think it's in the perfect position almost.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Leo, what do you think about Fuser and where it's at right now? It's at the top of the stack.
Oh, I love it.
Uh-huh.
I think If Found could go above Fuser based on group opinion.
That's sort of how I felt. Yeah.
Okay.
I like that.
That feels high for If Found for me.
I feel like that's appropriate. I don't know. I feel like no one has a bad thing to say about If Found. But
yeah. That's
do you like Fuser over If Found? Is sort
personally?
Yeah.
No, I like If Found more. You got me.
But are you as passionate about it as Leo? The Fuser kind of feels like it's in the same camp as the Pathless, where it's like, well, one person, this is their hill that they were willing to die on.
Mm-hmm. Versus If Found.
And so the very top of the very bottom of the top list versus the very top of the bottom list kind of feels equivocal there.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know, how passionate the other If Found people are about it.
What do you want from us, Jeff?
I'm just saying stuff.
Yeah. It's in that north of like territory for me. And so, the question is how red hot does Leo's Fuser passion burn? And does that one rocket ship to the moon take it above a lot of positive feelings towards If Found?
I don't think it has to.
Okay.
Speaking as the Fuser guy.
Okay.
Well, then, yeah.
Mr. Fuser, we call him.
Anna, you're telling me you can live with Persona 5 Royal being under Immortals Phoenix Rising?
Well, I
I feel like you have a low key hate on for Phoenix.
I like Phoenix Rising. I just feel like it's a little. Yeah. Okay. Never mind. You get the idea.
I feel bad because like I imagine Persona 5 Royal as definitely like, to be honest, a 7 or an 8 on the bottom 10. Like that's. Oh. But then I look at what's above it, and I think that it's probably a better game. But like again, I don't know. I feel like I don't want to push my love of Persona 5 Royal onto everyone.
No, I love Immortals. Persona's not my genre. I just don't really like turn-based RPGs. But like, I don't know. I think it can go above Immortals. I think it can go above Crash, honestly. Like, just based on people's love for it, based on the person I'm married to's love for it.
Wait, we're taking that into account?
Yeah,
no, we should take that into account.
Really important. She's gonna listen to this.
Yeah, well, she probably won't.
I was gonna say.
But I mean, I mean that in the sense of like, I was close to it this year, even though I wasn't actively playing it. I don't know if it's a factor or not, but like people love that game, and it's like, it's the best version of the best RPG.
Kyle, you saying the internet loved it and you watched somebody really enjoy it is not helping it on this list, right? If we're just measuring our own love,
You're totally right.
I feel like between Kyle and I, you have one person who played that game. Because like I've finished Persona 5. And I liked it, and I have no reason to believe that anything about Royal makes the game worse. Mm-hmm. But I haven't touched any of the Royal stuff, which is kind of like the grading on this one. I think is heavily in favor of the new stuff, right? So I have
yeah. Well, and that's what's hard is I can't I haven't played Persona 5, and so I can't sit here and say, here's how it improved Persona 5. I know that like it significantly, changed the story, added new characters, like it fixed a lot of sort of pacing issues with Persona 5, but I can't like speak to the improvements on it. And that's why I hesitate to like really push it up higher on the list, because like it is in this gray space of, improvement on an old game. And, so like, I personally don't know like how much I should advocate for it.
I think that idea of, I don't know exactly what's new versus what's old. I'm probably going against some argument I had earlier about Among Us, but I kind of feel like, hey, it's a game that was released this year that you picked up this year and you're loving. Like it's almost irrelevant to me, like what's new and what's old. It's just the experience for you this year.
Yeah, well, and for me, like, this was the game that I played and talked, like, annoyed everyone in my family about, right? like, telling them, about the story, like, what interested me, like, my favorite characters. Like, it is such a full world, and it is such a delight to explore during the pandemic. Its mechanics, like, fold really nicely into sort of giving structure to life. And so I think that... I don't know, based on what I like. Yeah. I don't know how much people like Crash. It seems like Leo really likes Gears Tactics. So that seems like it could be a good spot.
I annoyed my grandma talking about Tana Bandicoot this year too. So I feel like we're all in the same boat.
But you were saying you were dating her.
I was, repeatedly. Her memory's not great, but...
I would, from your love of it, I wouldn't mind it above Ori even, or
Persona 5,
slotting in Persona 5.
Anna, are we
crazy?
Dark Knight? I mean,
Anna, are you fighting for Persona 5, or are people just elevating it on your behalf? I mean, do you want it higher?
That's what I'm trying to sort out. Because it is this thing is like, I feel like the way like I approach games recommendations and the way I approach, like games crit, like I try to sort of separate myself from like, okay, like I'm trying to think about the game is long and the game is hard to get into. And I had to keep a notebook with me and, like write down all these notes and take notes. And I had to look stuff up online. And so like, like the classroom quiz test answers. And so like for me at the time, I felt that was fine because like it helped me dive into like this much more like much larger, much more built out world, but I guess my one hesitancy is just my biggest critique of it is that it is like too big and it's too confusing and it's too overwhelming. And that's why I'm a little concerned, I guess, because like some of it, when you're adding so many features, it's like, okay, I have to pay attention to the weather. It impacts the mood of the people, which impacts the dungeon. And I can only go to the dungeon at these times. And like it's apparently fixing problems with the old Persona, but it just adds a layer of complexity that I hesitate to like really put it up there because of it.
So
but the story's incredible. So
is it at a good spot?
I mean, I feel like part of this conversation has been like, critiques of what maybe make the game not as good, but in terms of the passion argument, like do the criticisms that you have of the game, have they affected how much you've loved the game, or are you just acknowledging, that the game is not perfect?
Yeah. I just wonder if we're doing the thing that we keep doing where we're interrogating this when maybe we don't need to. Like,
it sounds like it might be at a good spot.
Yeah. How's everyone feeling about the bottom 10 right now? I kind of like it.
Should Immortals be above Crash?
Should Immortals be above Crash?
Yeah.
I do that.
I would put it there. Personally,
I would also put it there.
Ooh.
Okay, here's an idea. Here's an idea. Immortals, Persona 5, Crash.
What is this anti-Crash agenda? I didn't sign up for this.
Wait. Okay, so the thing that I meant to that I wanted to say was that I think I like Crash more than Immortals.
Oh,
Did I say that?
Okay.
Who asked you?
Hang on, sorry. I'm going to turn your mic up.
Before he
Maybe you
corrected
have the
himself.
phone
That was more
Sorry. I think I confused the question.
Love it. Okay. So we're all saying that the list is good right now.
Yeah.
That's all I heard.
Yeah.
I'm okay with it. I'm good with it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I also think this is like the list that we're all kind of like less passionate about it.
The freak list. Yeah.
So I think that everyone's because like, that's not worth fighting for.
Yeah, those are all games that we're just happy we got on the list.
Yeah.
I know.
Yeah.
I know.
Yeah. That's why I'm not gonna sit here and like shout from a pulpit as to why Persona 5 Royal should be up 3 more spots.
Yeah. Okay. I'm leaving you behind, list. We're driving into the final arena.
Bye, list.
What are all these good games up here? We have to argue about these? Good God in heaven. All right. Right now, from the top down, the upper 10 is Hades, Ghost of Tsushima, Half-Life Alyx, The Last of Us Part 2, Finals Fantasy 7 remakes, Yakuza Like a Dragon, Kentucky Route Zero, Spiritfarer, The Pathless, Animal Crossing New Horizons. Let's...
Hey, can I just nominate that The Pathless be number 10? Just kind of
Thinking that.
So am I,
just based on it, it's one person who's red hot on it.
Okay.
Yeah.
You know, where like Fuser kind of fell down into the bottom half of those lists. So
Yeah. Okay.
you hate
How
that,
I feel
Kyle?
about 7 remake.
Hey, whoa.
If we're gonna talk about one person being red hot,
No, wait.
Oh.
Can I talk about what I did this weekend?
Yes, you may.
Kyle, I believe you have stepped into a trap.
End him, Anna.
So I go to my PlayStation and I tell myself, okay, I should get a solid, like maybe try and get like some more time in Valhalla, some more time in Watch Dogs Legions just to get a better idea of them. And I load up my PlayStation and I realize that actually I haven't spent a lot of time with Final Fantasy VII Remake and played it for 20 hours
Yes!
in one weekend.
Yeah.
And I literally stayed up all night because I had a deadline this morning. I stayed up because I spent all day playing Final Fantasy. I had to stay up all night writing an article. And I'm going to go play Final Fantasy after this. But I would like to be on the record that I am going to step up for that game. Like, no.
Well, 2 questions.
Yeah.
Did you play the original?
No.
And did you finish it?
Why does it matter if I played that? I haven't finished it. I haven't finished it, but I feel like I've spent enough time to understand the issues with the game. And I understand the issues with the game, but I still love it so much. Like, it is so frustrating, but like it like has just it's like I love it.
Yeah. See, well, here's the thing though, is like I didn't find it frustrating. I don't find it like I like the mechanics. I just found the ending soured me so much, and the further I get away from it, the more it bugs me that they broke that game into multiple pieces. I think it actively hurts the narrative in a big way, especially for someone like me who doesn't have any nostalgia for the original.
Yeah.
I really like that game a lot, but it's just not it's not a red hot for me. It's like I was really liking it, and then I hit the end and I really went down a cliffside, and time away from it has only bugged me more about where it left me.
I think harping too much on the ending, I think, is a mistake for critiquing this game. Whereas for me, I think for this game, it's like I loved it, and the ending, I liked it. But it was one of those like, I need to chew on this for a while. And I think judging it so much on that ending would be totally fair if it was the Final Fantasy VII Remake. But it feels like judging Infinity War, because it's like that ending was quite a downer. It's like, that there's more coming.
That's a bad argument for me, because I love the ending of Infinity War. I think the ending of, and it's also that thing that we all kind of initially, right before the game came out, we were all kind of like, hey, why are they splitting this apart? This seems bad. And then when it came out, everyone kind of forgot about it. And now I'm returning to that argument, is that it feels exploitive to split that game into multiple pieces, and I think it hurts the game.
I strongly disagree. There's so much, like, it feels like a cohesive game now, and there's, knowing Final Fantasy VII well, if they would have tried to squeeze it all into one, it's insane. That is absolutely too big of a game
for them to develop.
Yeah.
I'm going to offer a nice Jeff Cork quote here.
Yeah.
Not my problem. Like, they should have made the more cohesive, interesting full game. They've done it once before.
Yeah, but with that fidelity, you couldn't possibly do that. It would be a bizarre, rushed experience.
That doesn't matter.
Okay, wait. I actually do have a counterpoint to this, though. It's like, I don't know how it ends. I just know the story that I've experienced so far.
Yeah.
And like, the honeybee in scene is genuinely like sent me flying off the face of the planet. Like, it is like, I was screaming. My neighbors were like, what is going on?
Screaming.
Like, as far as like, if we're talking about passion, like, I freaking love the game and I love those characters. And like, I just like, I again don't know the deal with the ending. Yeah, but I really enjoyed the story up to this point. And
good.
Yeah, and if it belongs in the top 10, and it's one of those things I feel like I have to like take a step, and be like, it's good. It's a good game. Mm-hmm. I just want to make sure it's clear that's known that like, there's elements of it that like really bummed me out ultimately, despite
I
like
hear
having
you.
a good time.
I think some of that though is frustrating to hear, just as a huge fan of the game and the original, just because not having the context for why that ending is so interesting. I feel like you're missing out on some things. And yeah, I'm not fully defending that ending. I totally agree. It's like, it is more of just, here's a big thing to think about more than delivering emotions for that final chunk, which is a choice they made. I think it's totally fair to knock them for it. But I feel like at the same time, it feels a little bit like that. Well, I didn't play the other Half-Life games, so the end of Half-Life Alyx, like, that was just confusing. And it's like, well yeah, obviously.
I think with Final Fantasy VII specifically, though, I think one of the reasons I am disappointed by that ending is because up until then, I was totally on board. Like, I didn't feel like I needed to play the original Final Fantasy. Yeah. And then the ending felt like, here's a bunch of stuff only for those fans. If you're not on board already and have played that game, that ending I don't think is going to do a lot for you.
But I don't think it's a weird thing where it's not even, yes, Jeff noted, but it's not even for like just the original fans. It's like, hey, original fans, here's some insane things for you to think about. It's not a matter of like even more fan service for those original fans that like
whereas
the rest of the game.
I, as like a first time person, I don't know what any of the stuff they were like, all the threads that they were kind of alluding to. I don't know what I was supposed to make of any of that.
Yep. It was tough to string together on my end for sure. I think that ending is certainly flawed. But yes, Jeff.
Yeah, I didn't play the original and I beat the whole game, and I'm pretty red hot on it. I wouldn't say I'm white hot on it, but it's still up there, and I'm still confused as to what the hell everyone's problem with the ending was.
Well, like this is another issue where like I would have to talk very specifically about things and how like a lot of the stuff they do a lot of the very specific scenes at the end feel like they're like, and what about this thing? And I'm just like, I don't know what you're like. What about that thing? I don't know what you're talking about because I haven't played the original.
Yeah, and I don't know what they were talking about either, but it did not ruin my experience, and it did not ruin the climax of that game for me.
Yeah.
It's just like, there's some mysteries. It's a to be continued kind of thing. I still feel like I think I put like 70 hours beating that game, and the entire experience was fun, and I thought it was a good climax and final fight to that game.
Yeah, and I think it is amazing that, not the biggest Final Fantasy fans in this room played through and finished the game. Obviously, the Deepest Dive helped for a lot of that, but the fact that it's bringing in a new audience is such an incredible achievement for a remake of Final Fantasy VII. I think that battle system is arguably the greatest battle system the Final Fantasy team has ever put together. I think it's
Kyle, is it the f***ing cat that has you like so confused? Because like... No. That's the kind of thing that I see, and it's like, I don't know what the hell that is, but it's, like, it's Final Fantasy. There's a ton of weird stuff in that game that just isn't like, I'm not going to lose sleep because I don't understand everything.
That's totally fine. The cat is fun, honestly. Like, I think I listed as the dumbest thing. That's a fun tease, but the thing is like, there was no emotional payoff for anything for me in the end. Like the sort of main confrontation at the end of the game, I was like, I don't even know who this guy is. Like that happened like twice in a row at the end of that game.
I just think it's so bizarre to hold that against when if they said this is just the game, I think that's totally fair.
The box does say Final Fantasy VII Remake.
That is true. I mean, yes, that is a confusing thing. To be fair, the back of the box does make it clear that this is the first part of this journey. I think the marketing thing is one angle and how it's actually labeled there, but the understanding, this is an episodic game. They've said that for years and years and years and years. And so judging it so hard because it is an episodic game now seems so bizarre.
It's just, it led to a sort of bland ending to me. And I also just generally speaking, I don't like the argument of being like, how are they supposed to do it at that fidelity? It's like, they need to make a fully compelling experience. I mean, if Rockstar can deliver something with that kind of, level of sort of production value throughout the course of such a large experience, like, it's just something like, I don't think they get a pass for being like, well, they made the graphics really good, so of course they have to make it shorter. It's like, no, I just want the full thing.
But isn't it you're talking about not just doing the full Fantasy VII story, but just like having it be cohesive in itself, even if it's not that story.
Yeah, because like to bring up the Infinity War thing, I think Infinity War as itself is a good movie. Like I've watched the movie isolated several times and I like it. Whereas this, I feel like, okay, well, I guess I'll just like, even though I like the direction that ending takes the story, I think the way they do it, I think there's a version of that ending that I think actually manages to like close the arc on that game specifically and kind of say like, and this is part of a larger story. Whereas I think their specific delivery of how they do that ending, I think left a lot to be desired. And it like, I had to play some of it recently to say like, oh, I actually really like this game. Because the ending had left a really bad taste in my mouth.
Yeah, I cannot defend every aspect of that ending. I totally understand that. I do think as a RPG, it's not like it's this lingering experience. I do feel like, okay, they still give you the character arcs within that game. You still get the journey of Barrett. You still get a journey of Cloud. You still understand a lot about Aerith. Like there is enough there to chew on that it's not just the biggest tease of like setting up these characters and then just throwing them in a tornado of insanity.
And I felt like the bad guy was established enough. Like I still don't know what his backstory is, but I know he was the bad guy and he was a pain in the butt to fight but like in a very epic kind of showdowny way. I guess I totally agree, Kyle, that we shouldn't give it a pass, but for me, it was a compelling full arc with like a cutscene at the end that was like, oh, what the hell is that?
It's a tease and confusing epilogue almost on a game where you talk about the bad guy and it's like, okay, that is Shinra the corporation. Do you feel like the journey of Midgar and the journey of Shinra is not complete at this point? I feel like that is the story of the game, even if it does get insane at the end. That is the story of Midgar, self-contained.
No, see, I don't know. Like it's that second to last boss too that really rubs me the wrong way in that regard. It's like, well, wait, hold on, is this guy Shinra now? Like what? Like who's this guy? Is he coming
That's
back?
what the future games are for, Kyle. Explaining more.
But I think if you have to lean into that
set the table for that. Yeah, I know we're getting very nitpicky here, maybe too nitpicky. But I guess the only thing I wanted to get across is that just it's like. It's not like, I know, Hanson, you love that game. I know you're probably going to fight for it for number one. And I just wanted to make my argument for why. Like, I don't think it's there for me.
No, I like having this discussion about
that game. I do like the combat in particular. Fantastic.
Music, some of the best ever.
Music, yes.
There's so many things I love. I went back and I was going to I'm going to play just the opening again on my new TV this weekend and ended up playing the first several chapters of it again and just was reminded how much I love that. And just to have this conversation now, like, it's so personal to me that it's tough to talk about. But in terms of, I don't think I've had a nostalgic media experience anywhere near as powerful as that remake was for me. Like it was peak enjoyment of something that I loved so passionately back in the day. And so to like teleport myself 25 years or so into the past again to make me re-engage with this thing that I loved so much that made me fall in love with video games, that set me down this whole path, and to make me re-engage with that game again in a way that was also challenging and thoughtful about how they're changing things, why they're changing things, had me second guessing where they're going the entire way. It was one of my favorite video game experiences ever, which is in a rare league up there with the original Final Fantasy VII. I cannot express enough how much this remake meant to me. It was just, I could not have had more emotions playing through that game. Like, and I'm dead inside, and I was melting every scene. Like I went back and looked at my deepest dive notes for that game, and it's 57 pages of me taking notes on that frickin' game, and I just
Covered in tears.
Covered in tears. Yeah, the Google Docs. It was weird.
Doc file got wet.
Yeah, but it's just every other line was, this is amazing. This is amazing. I can't believe they did it. For, I love a lot of Square's games, but I have had zero faith that they understand Final Fantasy VII and what we like about Final Fantasy VII since Final Fantasy VII released. It's just been a series of disappointments just the entire stretch of the way. And for this game to release this year and be nailed so perfectly, it's just like this Hail Mary out of the blue about like, you do understand Final Fantasy VII. You understand the fans. This is incredible. Just to have a sense of humor again with that game, to have some levity, to have some fun. Like it's so dopey to be like, it made me feel like I was 11 again, but it has accomplished that task more than any piece of media I've ever experienced in my life. So,
but it's above the pathless. I think we can agree at this point.
But I think If Found tops it.
Well, let's move that one up.
No, yeah.
No, undeniable passion there for sure. I mean, I know how important that game was for you, Hanson. I just wanted to sort of nudge in my opinion.
No, that's a very fair nudge.
And Serial helped push me.
It's nice to just get the lay of the land for where we're all at on it, where you two liked it. Jeff, I'm
really like
above. Okay, good.
But it's just I would definitely put it over the path. I don't know necessarily what like the conclusion of this argument is meant to be. I feel like we just decided to go for like, well, what do we think of Final Fantasy Remake as a whole? But
I think it helps to know like where it's fitting.
Yeah, we're checking the temperature.
Yeah,
it sounds like one of a few possible number one contenders.
Yeah. No, I think I made a good argument.
Top half of the top half.
I think that's accurate. Can we just take a quick detour?
Yeah. What's up?
Animal Crossing New Horizons. We have not mentioned it yet. Where are we at with that?
I loved it for a month. For a month, I was like, this is the best game ever.
Yeah.
And then I haven't wanted to go back to it once.
Yeah. It's several months for me, but it's just shocking that like I got into doing dailies for that game. Like I was checking it every single morning, and I'm not that type of gamer, just the fact that game can so clearly be a treadmill. And it's like, I don't care because this treadmill is bliss and I love it. And the social experience that we talked about with Among Us is so powerful for me. Yeah.
It was also funny having not gotten into an Animal Crossing before. It was like, that was about to come out and I was like, hey, Animal Crossing friends. It's so you really like hitting rocks, right? And hitting trees. That's like, you're enjoying that? They're like, yep. And then I got the game and I was like, that is all right. It is pretty cool.
You like hitting
but it didn't have the longevity.
Yeah.
I think I feel kind of bummed out because I actually like wanted to like it more than I did. Like if I'm being completely honest,
please.
I enjoyed it a lot. Like definitely my top 10 list. But like, and maybe this is just me, like I don't have a ton of fun like decorating and rearranging things. And some of the grinds for the recipes were like really real, right? I just think I don't thrive in a gaming environment where I am pressured in a certain season to catch all the fish, So that's what I learned about myself. And as a result, like I feel like that sort of tampered my excitement for it. Even though I obviously like I enjoyed it a lot.
Yeah.
Overall.
Jeff, did you check it out?
Yeah, I only started it like a month ago, so I'm still in that kind of going back and doing a little bit every day kind of thing. So I'm also enjoying it a lot. But I haven't hit that cliff yet of am I going to keep on doing this forever, which I'm sure I'm not, but that also I think that one gets some points probably from all of us of just being like the happy, totally optimistic game in the year of hell.
Yeah.
For us.
Also, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No.
Oh, no, just that, like Leo, you said, I played it for a month and then put it down. A month's like a good amount of time to play a game. And I feel like I played it for like, I probably played it for like, I held on to it at least for 2 to 3 months, maybe. Like I wasn't playing as much as I was like the first 2 weeks or whatever. Like I wasn't min-maxing it in the same way, but I was checking in and playing for a while, so that's any indicator of.
It's a special case. I think I did play it for more than a month. Now that I'm thinking about it, obviously quarantine is a time warp or whatever. But there was a long period where it was like every morning before I got up for work, I would set my alarm for an hour earlier and just play an hour of Animal Crossing and just make a ton of progress on my town. And it's weird looking back at a game like that because on the last day I ever played it, it was like checking in on this has become a chore. I have to acknowledge that, and I have to like find something else to do. And it's, kind of leaves my mind in that space versus how much fun I was having throughout. Like being excited to wake up and check and find like a letter from my friend with a specific piece of gear that I wanted, or my one friend would always send me recipes. Like having those relationships in that game because we were all playing it at the same time, it really was magical at the height of it.
Yeah. How do you feel, Leo, about putting Spiritfarer below Animal Crossing New Horizons?
For me, I would still like Spiritfarer above it.
Yeah, that's pretty close to a coin toss for me. Oh, Kyle, what are you thinking?
Spiritfarer above.
I kind of like where Animal Crossing is.
Me, I like both of those where they are. I mean, being realistic about where Spiritfarer could get to, I think that's a safe spot for it.
It's just, for everybody listening, it's Spiritfarer, then Animal Crossing, then the Pathless for the bottom three.
How about Kentucky Route Zero? Like the people who love that game and how many people love that game.
I adore it. I think it's a masterpiece.
Yeah, I agree.
I finished it and it did not hit me, but I won't rob them of them being that into it. It's one of those things like this. Clearly understand why this has an impact on the people it has an impact on. But I went through the whole thing like a numb robot from hell.
But I'm guessing there's a lot of overlap between the people who liked Kentucky Route Zero and Spiritfarer, and you guys would put Kentucky Route Zero above that.
Is there
I haven't
overlap
played
there?
Spiritfarer.
I haven't played Spiritfarer either.
Oh, okay.
So there's just no.
Well, then I don't know what the hell I'm talking about.
I would definitely put Spiritfarer above Kentucky Route Zero.
Here's where I'm at with Kentucky Route Zero is that I adore it so much that I was like, okay, do I want to put this on my top 10 list? It very quickly made its way on there, and I looked at Dota 2 and said, I don't know. Like I love this game so much. I think
hold on. To be clear, so you're talking about all time, right?
All
Not
time.
2020.
Yeah.
Wow. So that's a big deal.
It is. I think it is in the way that like I think a lot of people really like games because this is like a really good film. I feel like Kentucky Route Zero is rich and dense in the way that I think like literary masterworks are. But I like something like The Count of Monte Cristo or like Hemingway are, because I think like I've played it multiple times this year, and each time I came away with it from it with a completely different reading of like, I'm picking up this thread. Like the first time I played through it, it felt like, okay, this is a game about coming to terms with like dying and mortality. And like the way the game kind of reinforces that. And the second time that I played through it, it felt like, this is a game about communities and about how what a lot of tech and stuff has done to kind of destroy the sense of like, here's our community that is like not, universal, but it is ours. It is very specific to us. And I feel like all of those characters are written so like masterfully, and it also uses like the video game medium in ways that I don't think I've seen a lot of other stuff do.
Yeah, I agree. I also feel really strongly about Kentucky Route Zero. Like, I think that, like, I don't get like the same amount of hype for it as I do for, say, like, Final Fantasy VII, but it is because like it genuinely like is probably like the greatest piece of art in video games that I've ever played. Like, and so like I don't engage with it the same, like I don't fangirl over it, right?
It's not like an exciting like, here's a cool thing that happens every time. It just feels like it is very sober, but also not boring because there are like really cool fantasy elements there. Yeah. But like every act, I think is just like every time I play through an act, I'm like, this is the best act, and then I'll play through the next one and think, oh no, but this one's clearly better. And everyone talks about like the way that, it has to be a game, right? So it's like on some level it has to do this thing. I think Kentucky Route Zero works backwards and says like, how can we make a new kind of experience to fit our story? Because like all those interludes are very different experiences. Yeah. That aren't just like, for a lot of it, you are just reading text and like making choices. But even that, like the way conversations don't feel like, here's what I would say, and more like you are sort of working with the game to make like this like poetic passage of text. So because like the choices you're making aren't like, I like this thing versus I don't like this thing. Well, like, oh, so what is your history? And you will make up what the history is of like, tell me about yourself. And you're like, okay, well, I used to be a farmer, or like I used to be a trucker or whatever. And those are you're sort of choosing what the story is by making these choices. And the game really like plays around with that in some really like fantastic ways. And it just talks about things that games don't talk about. Like the way it talks about like, history really only happens if we record it. And so there's this extended thing about how, this family was kind of torn apart because there was half of them were minors, and one of them happened to be like, I think they were a professor that was trying to chronicle like minor songs and things like that. And the way they went into the mines and how that kind of like, kind of caused a fracture in that family. And that alludes to very real histories of like, the only reason we know about a lot of folk songs is because people like professors went into the hills of West Virginia to talk to a bunch of miners. And that's just a thing you don't see in video games. Everything feels so compelled to like, let's make this like a movie. And this is just like, let's just tell these very disparate narratives about working class people that feel very not real, but that resonate really strongly because of how well they're written.
Yeah. Well, and it is sort of contributing to like almost, it's like an Appalachian magical realism. Yeah. And like, which I think I just personally like appreciate it because like you're looking, like that body of work has like historically been dominated, by authors from like other regions. So it's really cool to see like an American made video game about this specific region of the US, like writing these histories, sort of telling us about these histories. Like in a fictionally compelling way. And it's like, honestly, like, I feel like that game made me a better person and helped me understand like the places that I've lived better,
It is a very like deeply sympathetic game. And one thing I do want to point to is that like I feel like we're making it sound like it's a very much an eat your vegetables kind of game where it's like, oh, this is very profound and deep, but it's not like fun. Like there is a non-Euclidean highway in that game. There is a part where you're working your way through an office building and like they tell you, oh yeah, she's on the like this lady that you're looking for is on the 5th floor. And like, what she looks like, to some degree what she looks like because you played at hers, you play through her works in like a interlude. And okay, she's on the 5th floor. And as you're going up the elevator, you see her on the 2nd floor, but you can't do anything because the elevator is already going up to the 5th floor. So you're like, but if you know that game already, you can be like, no, it's on the 2nd floor, and you can just go talk to her. And there are all these like really cool bits like that. There are like the fact that the interludes in that game are everything from like a fake VR experience to like, here's a hotline you can call that will give you information about the next act. And there's just, here's a public, like a PBS style special where they're just talking about random art that you can just go and watch a video online. All that stuff feels like it is like in the way that video games are like, we always break them down into like, well, it's got really good music and it's got really good graphics and it's got gameplay. Like it feels like these multimedia projects. Kentucky Route Zero feels like it acknowledges that really well and tries to say like, we want this story to be good. So let's just pull from every possible kind of multimedia thing that we can use to make it. So like one of those acts is a play that is performed in kind of like first person. So you play as a drunk who's in the middle of the play. And this is like I think the second interlude. So it's not like super spoily. But so you're watching a play around you, and then you also look to your left, and there's like, here are the director's notes of like, here's how we modify these two plays to combine them into one. And then you look behind you, and there's like reviews of what other people thought of that same play. And then I looked it up, and you can just buy the play. Like they made a physical book that is just that play, and people have acted it out on like British like theater. And it's like, this is a made up thing that they made. And like the fact that they're so dedicated to like creating these historical artifacts, which is a lot of what that game is about, is, finding these histories and how we catalog histories. The fact that they went so far as to like do all these bits that make it feel like, oh, this game already exists. Like this game has a history already. I think it's such a powerful thing for a game to do.
Serial, if I may.
Yes.
I love it. I love your passion for this game. How would you change this list? Where would you move Kentucky?
Ideally, I would like to have it at the top, but I know that's not like the most pragmatic thing. But I mean,
ideally, I'd like to see it at the top too.
Number one?
Yeah. Kentucky Route Zero is going to be my personal number one. I think.
Same for me. Obviously.
So,
Like I haven't decided that yet, but
Okay. I'm just gonna move it. Let's just go ahead and move it to number 1 and see how that works later.
I think that's a good looking list.
All right.
Yakuza, Like a Dragon. Yakuza.
Well, and since we feel like Spiritfarer is in a good spot,
I feel like Spiritfarer is in the right spot, right above Animal Crossing.
Right.
Yeah. By the way, Leo, yeah, I played co-op over the weekend, and I like Spiritfarer a lot. I feel like it's a lot of busy work to make a little bit of progress. Like that's kind of what that game is spin some plates, set a timer here, go check on this, wait for this crop to grow. Okay, now you're shearing the sheep, now you're moving this. It's just a lot of frantically spinning the plates to slowly inch forward. But I love that world, I love the tone, and co-op I feel like helps in such a big way for having 2 people to alleviate some of that busy work feeling. So that's my main knock against the game, is just that feeling of I'm doing so many things and I'm barely progressing anything at this point.
I couldn't imagine playing it not co-op for sure. That's like where all the fun is for me, is like planning together what we're going to go for and what we need to do, the steps we need to do to make that happen, and feeling like, oh, we had a really efficient day of playing Spiritfarer. Like we made a lot of ground, and feeling really a lot of pride in that because it's so self-motivated and self-guided. Yeah, co-op definitely makes it work for me.
Yakuza, I love a lot. I haven't finished it. I feel like I'm starting to hit the barriers in that game of it's a wonderful game and it's a fine RPG. I feel like the RPG systems are bringing it down.
I think there are, I made my way through that stuff mostly by like finding guides online, like go to the shopping center and then level up, and then you'll be okay towards the end of the game. But I do think that you're right in that it is like, it ends up it's like good for most of it, and then they kind of just don't understand leveling curves in that game in a weird way. So you are forced to grind through that stuff, and that I do think it's a legitimate knock against it. I think it's unfortunate that for a game that kind of had to be the most inviting Yakuza game yet, because it like, here's a new protagonist, here's like a brand new battle system, here's a bunch of new things that to welcome people into the Yakuza fold. I think it's really unfortunate that they bungle like some pretty important parts of the RPG to do that. That said, if you could go on a cheat engine and just make yourself incredibly powerful, I think it's still one of the best games of the year.
I completely agree. I cannot say enough good things about the characters and the writing and just the tone of that game. It is freaking fantastic, to the point that it's just like, I hats off to the localization team, hats off to the original team. It's just, I can't think of another game that's been translated out of Japanese that has worked so well just on a writing level. I really think it is just on another level. Yeah. But this is also my first Yakuza game, so I'm coming in, that I've really sunk my teeth into.
Like my 5th, I think.
Yeah.
But yeah, I still have found so much to love about that formula, and so many of the sub stories are just like these really funny, just one-off stories. Like the stuff that it's like a even more comical version of like The Witcher, where every quest feels like, that wasn't like a mind-blowing piece of thing, but I'm glad that happened to me. Like, I'm glad that, you stumble upon this one like group of like guys who have like a diaper fetish, but it ends up not going the way you think it is, where it's just like, no, we're gonna own this. We're proud of what we are, and like screw you for thinking we're weird. And Ichiban is kind of like, you know what? I'll let you have it. That's cool. Like the way that is so sympathetic about the weirdest things in a way that I think a lot of open worlds aren't, where they're just like, look at this weird thing.
Yep.
Like, isn't this person weird? And like, aren't you cool for being normal? Right. And like, this game is just like, yeah, embrace your, like, in whatever way you're weird, whatever you're into, like, that's cool. And
coming from even the perspective of Ichiban, who thinks he's in a Dragon Quest game. I mean, even he is on this, help me out, Quixotic down. Quixotic? Is that how I say that? So everybody, it's like he's on this Quixotic. No, but he's a weirdo. He's seeing this world through this distorted lens as he's trying to help out all these other weirdos. I just feel like that angle of playing in some ways what is kind of a throwback turn-based RPG, but through the lens of it feeling like a parody of JRPGs, is just like this perfect recipe for, yes, this is what I want in gaming, is just a parody of old JRPGs that still is shockingly fun to play.
Yeah. The other thing that's cool is like it has this like really wild bombastic tone, but it also manages to like know when to like be really earnest and really like lean into like the very real struggles that these people are, you know, fighting in society. And I think it does a really good job, especially towards the end, of just like sealing the deal on a lot of the themes it sets up, for sure.
If I may, Serial?
Yep.
How do you feel about Yakuza versus Half-Life Alyx?
Man, they're pretty close. Like I still haven't figured, like that's one of the contentious spots on my top 10 list.
Half-Life Alyx is a cool game. I just don't know. Honestly, if I had to be honest with everybody, I don't know what number it should be on this list.
Should be high, top 5.
Yeah, I love it. From the arguments we've already heard, I think it's comfy in the 3 to 6.
3 to 6.
3 to 6.
Yeah, it's one. I don't know. It's like I don't think it needs the championing that like Serial offered Kentucky Route Zero. I mean, it's like a really great VR game that moves that very young medium forward and is the next step in the Half-Life universe, which is really exciting and has some great, hilarious writing. Yeah, surprisingly funny.
For the first time in years, Half-Life fans have something to be hopeful about, like both excited and hopeful about.
Which is a hard trick to pull off, considering all the expectation around the new Half-Life. You know,
right?
I'm still curious, Serial. Not that it's a direct either or, but how do you feel about Half-Life Alyx versus Yakuza Like a Dragon as the overlap between those two?
I think I might give the edge to Yakuza, but I think it's weird because it might be a numbers game where 3 people really like Alyx versus 2 people who really like Yakuza. But
Anna liked Yakuza from what she played. I think everybody liked it, right?
Yeah, I've liked it. I'm not as far, so it's still early days for me in that one. But I have enjoyed a lot what I've played of that one.
Yeah.
It's also tough because like the people who don't have a VR set literally can't play it.
Yeah.
So it's kind of a tough thing of like, well, you guys didn't play it because you weren't interested. Maybe you just weren't able.
I listened to
that's like a legitimate thing.
Yeah. It would make me very nauseated too. I listened to a lot of Spoilercast though about it, and I think the story is cool what they did.
I mean, the dialogue and story ended up being my favorite thing about it, which is a weird thing to say when there's a game where you can like literally walk behind cover and physically lean over it and shoot bad guys.
Yeah,
like talking with the characters is like the part I look forward to the most over the course of the game.
Yeah,
but maybe
I
that's
really like the combat though. Like that first shootout when you realize you can break a window open and move the glass out of your way with your pistol to get a better shot, and that you're literally like putting your hand over the railing so that you can shoot, but not necessarily like really looking at it much, and you're kind of just like, here's the window I'm kind of peeking out of. That is a thing that like other video games just don't do outside of the VR space.
Yeah,
and it's fun.
Catching grenades with the gravity gloves and tossing them back, all that kind of stuff feels amazing in that game.
The way they like kind of have a new approach to inventory management by saying like, oh, if you want 2 extra grenades, you're going to have to hold them like literally in your hands. Like you're going to have to hold down this button as long as you can if you want to do that. And so I was like constantly, okay, I need to solve this puzzle. Let the grenade go, do the thing, and then pick up the grenade. Make sure I remember to pick up the grenade and keep going. I think like all the considerations that they put into making VR like a play space, I think make it a really strong experience, whether or not you like VR games.
Yeah. All right. Well,
great.
Okay, so if we could all just fuse into one person, and then we could ask that person, how are they feeling about this list currently? Which for the audio listeners, just for a reminder, going top to bottom right now, it's Kentucky Route Zero, Hades, Ghost of Tsushima, Last of Us Part 2, Final Fantasy VII Remake, Yakuza Like a Dragon, Half-Life Alyx, Spiritfarer, Animal Crossing New Horizons, and The Pathless.
I'm curious for everyone's Ghost of Tsushima thoughts. It's my favorite game of the year, so I'm very hot on it.
Yeah.
But I recognize I don't think anyone was as hot on it as me. But I loved the sort of like, it's funny, I don't have as anything verbose as Serial did for Kentucky Route Zero, but like I did not want to stop playing that game. I love the world. I love the way it pushed you in all these directions without really having you look at a little mini map at all. Like it really did that really naturally. I really like the combat. I like switching stances. The story was not the top of my list, but I was engaged throughout it, and I liked the way it ended. I mean, my big disappointment with the DLC so far is that it's been multiplayer. Like I just want an excuse to go back into that world and run around. And like it's also like a technical achievement, just the way it looks, and like the way that game loads is like insane. I still don't know how they pulled that off. It's crazy. But it is, for me, it was the game that like I could not put down this year. It was the one that kept me up late, and I just didn't stop until I got the platinum trophy. Like I did everything in that game, you know.
Mm-hmm. I only got into it in the past month. I wanted to check it out before the end of the year, and I adore that game. That is absolutely one of my favorites on this whole list.
Oh, wow.
It's so well designed. It is like the only game I feel like cares what its UI is. Every other game just has everything you expect out of your UI, you know, your mini map and or your compass, your ammo on screen at all times or whatever. But if you don't need something in Ghost of Tsushima, it disappears immediately. And, 90% of the time there's nothing on the screen. And I love it for that. You talked about it as like a podcast game initially, right, Kyle? It was a podcast game for you?
Probably. Again, that's one of those things I consider a positive. But like, I don't know. That was one. I mean, I don't remember. It wasn't really one I listened to a lot of podcasts during because it was like there's not any downtime in that game, and downtime is not a negative. I like the downtime in Immortals, for example, but Ghost of Tsushima, I feel like you took 2 steps and you were doing something worthwhile,
Yeah, I was just going to say, I feel like it's not like everybody's talking and not like you need to listen to everybody talking. And yet it's so great to just get immersed in and feel that mood. And it's so well paced with the different activities, like doing haikus to fill out the open world of just like going and sitting down. And literally it's like just forcing you to meditate instead of fight for a little bit. And I think it does wonders for the pacing of it. I think that is such a well-designed game. It is really just it is the only game that feels like it took as long as it did to make. I feel like it's so polished.
Yeah.
No fat on it.
I feel like I didn't play enough to have a strong opinion, but I liked what I played. Where's everybody else at with this?
It's up there for me as well, probably in like top 4.
Okay.
Yeah, that is a game that is also very much in my wheelhouse in terms of interest in, Japanese, like the setting, the time period, the, open world activities. I think my biggest criticism has been that some of that stuff kind of, well, not even, like they throw in enough other like new activities and stuff. I was going to say some of it feels very like kind of classic open worldy stuff, but then you do have like the haikus and other things that are more interesting, and I really like the combat of it too. And so it's up there for me. It's not my favorite of the year, but
and the shrines, like jumping puzzle shrines, I'm always excited to find.
Yeah. Surreal.
Yeah, I feel I fell off of it after about 20 hours because I was playing through it and it started to feel a little samey because I think some of those activities, like there is a pretty like wide variety of activities, but they all kind of feel like very like checklisty in that, when you find a fox, it's not about like, oh, like somewhere around here is, the thing you're supposed to get. It's just you just follow that fox. And it's like you don't really have to think critically in a lot of them. Haiku one, like, yeah, you can make your own haiku, but you like, if you want to just get through it, you can just press whatever, like you kind of just press whatever button you want. And eventually you get a poem. So I wasn't as engaged, I think as anyone else, but like, it was a pretty good podcast game for me. But, once I got to that 20 hours, I think my brother ended up platinuming it. And I asked him, like, is it worth it to keep going? Like, he had platinum. He had done everything. And he's like, nah. And like, is it more of this? And then he's like, yeah, more or less. Yeah. So I ended up just like not continuing because I felt like I wasn't like really getting like as immersed, or like it didn't do as much for me as it did for you guys. But, like I don't necessarily have like a huge thing about, I don't hate it, like I'm not going to fight against it, but I didn't like love it. So
just for the sake of moving, I'm going to move it. And I'm sure it'll spark another conversation. It is now moved below Final Fantasy VII Remake, above Yakuza. So right now the list is Kentucky Route Zero, from the top bottom. Kentucky Route Zero, Hades, Last of Us Part 2, Final Fantasy Zone Remake, Ghost of Tsushima, Yakuza Like a Dragon, Half-Life Alyx, Spiritfarer, Animal Crossing, The Pathless. That's good to know. We should probably jump into this hornet's nest that is a little game called The Last of Us Part 2. I am feeling very, very hot on The Last of Us Part 2. I really love that game. And I think I know it's not fair to take wider consensus into it, but I just feel like over the last couple months, there's kind of been this critical anti-Last of Us Part 2 vibe in the industry. And I just want to remind everybody, like, do you remember how amazing that experience was? Like, just the art through that game alone, and specifically, of course, without spoiling anything huge here, but just the structure of The Last of Us Part 2 is so awesome. To see Naughty Dog step up and make a sequel to one of the most beloved games of all time and swing so hard for where they want to take it, and a little bit uneven at moments, no doubt about it, but you've got to give credit for them swinging so hard, for the fact that they can take the first sequel to one of the most beloved games of all time, and at several points throughout that game have an audience saying, what is happening? Like, that is, and not in a bad way for most people, but just to put people that far off balance repeatedly throughout that game, I think is incredible. Am I nuts where it feels like people are bouncing back against that game and they're forgetting how amazing the core is?
It won Game of the Year, so like.
Oh, that's true.
Yeah,
I mean, I guess for the Game Awards, yeah.
Game of the Year multiple places, so it's not like it ended up being like a Bioshock Infinite situation.
That's true.
Yeah,
that's true.
Just that was my only point. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, Hans, I'm with you, man. Like, it's my number 2 after Ghost of Tsushima. I mean, the way it looks at a narrative from multiple perspectives, I think, is like the best that's ever been done in any medium. I think I'd have to think about it, but like
some people would say Godfather Part 2 is pretty important.
Maybe I'm putting myself in a hole here by like not thinking of everything, but it was I don't see that kind of narrative often, and I adored it for that reason.
Yes, and it's easy because every Naughty Dog game is kind of like that, but performances and visual fidelity and actually being able to convey human emotion in characters that you forget that they're video game characters, and it feels like you're just watching amazing performances between these characters. It's my number 1 still so far this year, and I think one of the best storytelling, even though Leo was making poo-poo faces.
That's fair. No, like I think back to when we first talked about it on the podcast, where Kyle, you had played through the most, I believe. And I remember, just because I used it for the quote on the thumbnail, but you had a line where you're just like, yeah, it's Naughty Dog. Oh, what did you say? Like, Naughty Dog embarrasses every other writer in the video game industry. And it's worth just remembering every once in a while. I think that's obviously hyperbole in a lot of cases, but just the fact that playing through Last of Us Part 2, and there's just a scene in that game where 2 characters are talking about, hey, what are you doing later? And it's such a small moment, but it's like, how many video games have ever had a scene where it's just 2 characters comfortably talking about, what are you doing later? And it just feels like a believable exchange between humans. It is so incredibly rare. But Leo, if you squinted any harder...
Sorry for video games at the bars there.
It's true. It's true, though, man. Leo,
Zing.
Where are you at with this game?
I don't know. We're talking about the wrong kinds of video games, I feel like.
Yeah.
Leo, how do you feel about it?
I personally, honestly, I didn't think it earned its length, and I was really, really bored by the end of it. And I felt like I was excited because I felt like The Last of Us was really new at the time. Mm-hmm. I enjoyed the combat. First one got a lot of flack for the combat. I thought it was like cool and grounded and doing something new. But the second one, I feel like didn't push that forward in a way that justified it being 3 times as long. And it was...
Yep.
And just that, and having the story not grabbing me, I just wasn't into it throughout or at the end. Obviously, so elevated by the incredible production value and performance capture, obviously. Like, obviously unparalleled, and it made it fun to, like, play with my girlfriend and, like, digest the story as we were going through, and it was just, like, everything we noticed that was great about the game was like, oh, look how cool this vista is. Look how pretty that person's face is. That felt like all the standout moments were like that for us.
Yeah, I think I'm kind of with Leo in that I playthrough for the deepest dive, and I was like probably the most lukewarm on it, and I've kind of liked it less since. Just the more I think about that story, the less I'm impressed by it. And like Leo, it's like, oh, the really good things about this game, I think, are like the performances and like some of the character scenes. And to me, it always goes back to like, it just feels like here's a really good best case use of like, we are a top of the line studio with the backing of like our first party publisher, and we have a bunch of money. So like it is a really good use of that structure. But I think that if it didn't have that, I don't know that I would be like, I don't think that it would be as captivating as it is for a lot of people. And yeah, I don't know that I'm anywhere near as hot as you guys are on it. Yeah.
Understanding like, okay, top of the line, clearly they have this insane budget and a lot of faith from Sony that they've built up over the years. But it is that thing of, I don't think we need to hold that against the game. The experience we had is the experience we had, you know?
And they didn't play it safe with that.
Right.
You know, like they took big swings on that,
and they're paying for it in a lot of ways. Yeah.
I also think there are spots where I think they do stay a little too comfortable. I think they, not to get into specifics, but I think that ending is a little bit of a mess because they just felt like they wanted to have every possible ending in there.
Yeah,
like
I agree.
I feel like that game could have ended multiple times, and it doesn't. Like Leo said, I think it goes on way too long. I think that there are moments where they could have cut this. You know, like there are segments of that game later on that I definitely think they could have abbreviated, and like there are parts of that game that I just don't think are fun or interesting, like from a gameplay perspective. And there are some later plot stuff that I just find really kind of hard to swallow in terms of believability. And also I'm just not a big zombie game fiction fan or a zombie fiction fan, and like I mentioned on the deepest dive, I think I have some issues with like the premise of like, here's a really hostile world where everyone is like super like on site with each other, and it just feels really like it feels very against the spirit of what was going on at the time, for sure.
I liked a lot of the stuff in the second half. It made me wish they like led with some of those interactions. But yeah, it was tough following the main character and knowing where it was going and having an opinion about where it was going, and that never changing throughout that long of an experience.
Yeah, I definitely agree. Too long. Specifically, that final stretch was one of those like, really, we're really going back into it. Okay. Okay. All right. Nice to know where everybody's at. That helps.
I'm sorry, my faces betrayed me, but I really don't want to be rude about it.
Yeah.
Neither do I.
It's one of those things where I'm almost like bummed that you guys didn't get what I got out of it in terms of like just getting engaging with it. Like I totally like not disagreeing with what you guys are saying, but like I wish you had gotten engaged with it as much as I did too. Like, because it just like it totally wrapped me up. I cried multiple times over the course of that game, like easily. The tears just coming out, like it wasn't even a problem.
Yeah, we got it.
Did your daughter watch you cry? Was that embarrassing for you? Or were you like, yes, this is what it's like to feel the full spectrum of human emotion?
I think she was too scarred from just watching that game.
Oh, that was a bad idea in retrospect, yeah. And you're worried about her watching you play Yakuza.
Let's do the Hades. Let's do the Hades talk.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, Jeff. Are you saying you want to talk Hades?
Do the Hades.
All right.
It's the only one left on the list.
It is the last one I've been dangling. Jeffem?
Oh, Anna's Hades is different from me and Leo. So.
I was dabbing.
That's the beauty of the roguelike.
Jeffem, how do you feel about Hades?
Like it. I've enjoyed my time with it. It's one where it's like, this game is, it's hard to explain why it's good, because it's a roguelike, but it just feels good to play. Is like ultimately is what makes that game so magical. Is that's what keeps me going back from one run to the next. Is that it just feels, the combat feels so good compared to so many other roguelikes. But I don't think I'm as hot maybe as other people, or I just don't know where it lands on everyone else's lists.
I'm probably between you and Serial, where I really like the game a lot. The more I play it, the more I really, really enjoy it. I'm just blown away by how tight of a system it is, combined with the story being interwoven in that. Like, if we're not giving it up for just that tight of a gaming package of everything good, like, I don't know what else we're celebrating here. That is just as good as you can get, to the point that I realized playing it like, oh, Supergiant's just my new Blizzard. just for having no doubt about their sense of game design. Like, they know exactly what they're doing. Every power-up's going to feel overpowered. Somehow it still all works out. It's always interesting. It's made me care about my build in a game, which is not the type of gamer that I am.
It's like called MinnMax.
Yeah, I know. Don't tell anybody, please. Seriously, don't tell anybody about MinnMax.
Tell your friends about MinnMax though.
Yeah. Runs take a little long for me, but I'm probably not as good as or as efficient. What's that?
You can cut those numbers down if you know what you're doing.
Yeah, well, that's going to be a long road to
That's true.
Truck to haul. I don't know what the phrase is. So I'm very, 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 very warm to hot on Hades is where I'm at.
I'm also on the hotter side for Hades. I think that it's the tightest gameplay loop that we've seen this year.
Yeah, for sure.
And I feel like all too often, to be honest, games with good gameplay get lost in the shuffle. And so it's really cool to see a game like Hades really bring the full package, right? Of really tight gameplay, really incredible writing and narrative, a really fully built out world that draws on the mechanics of the game itself. And then also, you have all these great sort of bonuses, like great cast of voice actors, incredibly designed characters. And I will say, at first I really liked it a lot, but I'm not good at roguelikes or roguelites.
Yeah.
And I did turn on the hero mode or whatever to help me experience the story more, and that was really helpful to me, and I liked that a lot, and I think that really positively impacted my experience of that game.
Yeah, I think one of the best things is how it's very inviting, and it turns the story loop that you would find in any other game into the gameplay loop. Mm-hmm. And I think to me, this is a game that just we talk about the cognitive dissonance a lot as being this weird crucible for a lot of games. But I think this game blows that cognitive dissonance apart in that it accounts for so many of your actions. There's maybe one thing that I'm oh, they don't address this, but everything else is just there will just be moments where you're oh, that's a really clever way to implement this, or here's an interesting response that the game had to me doing this specific thing that I didn't think they paid attention to. And just the way from I also wasn't I'm not a big roguelike guy, but at this point I've beaten that game literally 100 times.
Jesus.
And it always felt fresh. The only reason that I had stopped playing it was because I'd spent 150 hours with it, and that's not oh, you have to do 150 hours of this game to beat it. It's more I did everything in that game. I did every prophecy. I beat the game with every weapon at 16 heat. I did you look at after you beat the game once, you get unlocked this difficulty system that makes the game harder, and there are specifically new versions of the bosses that you can fight, and I beat those as well. I could not stop playing that game for as long as I did, and part of it felt like such a smooth ramp of I don't know if I'll ever beat this game the first time you die, to oh, I'm able to beat this game in 14 minutes and just eviscerate everything. Here's the most broken, powerful build that I can find. And it the ramp from the first run to the last run for me was it felt so smooth on every level of just I'm constantly getting better. I'm getting further every time. Or if I die quickly, it's oh, I learned this one specific thing that might help me a little bit. And there are just so many systems that the game throws at you. And also the story, I think, is really strong and is structured in a way that no other game has really done before, where it's not about okay, here's the beginning of the game, here's the middle of the game, here's the end of the game. It's more about can I here are all these different relationships with these characters that you can have, while also implementing here are these a few set piece moments that really drive the story forward and make you care about these people.
Mm-hmm. And the fact that they can have so much dialogue in that game to even account for, you mentioned, these weird scenarios where even just, okay, you turn on the modifier to have now Meg and her two sisters be the boss fights, where 3 of them going up against you. There's dialogue for that, obviously. But then you turn that modifier off, there's still dialogue for now. It's oh, now I have to go up against you again alone, Meg. The fact that every little adjustment has natural dialogue that isn't just constantly repeating in a grating way after playing it how many frickin' times, Surreal? It's mind-boggling.
Yeah. And all those the storylines of all those characters end up being pretty interesting. I wanted to see where's this storyline going with Achilles and Nyx, and every character has this really interesting storyline that ties into the other characters or brings them all, kind of turns them into this really strong family unit of gods and like, chthonic gods. And it's like, it is legitimately like one of the most interesting takes on Greek mythology.
Yeah.
Just like, here's a bunch of characters that we're going to like, change in different ways to like make them fit our narrative. And like, it's one of the few games where I don't think there's like a really bad character. There's some that I like more than others, but like everyone is like kind of pretty like either okay to fantastic in a lot of ways. And like there's no character that I'm like, oh, I have to talk to this person again. For as many characters as there are to talk to, I think is like, and that is what makes that game so great, is that you want to keep playing to see the story through and to get better. And like as a consequence, almost, if you're a narrative based person, you get better as a consequence of wanting to see more story. And if you're someone who wants to get better, you're seeing all this great story as a consequence of you getting better. So that loop just is so tight and just factors into itself so well throughout the course of that game.
Yeah, I was thinking about it too. Greatest sense of place in gaming in 2020 is just the underworld in Hades. Like thinking about just an impactful location coming up out of that blood again and again and again. That is just an environment that you get to soak in a really satisfying way.
Yeah, and you can buy a towel rack that you put right next to it.
It's true.
If you want to soak up. Yeah.
Yeah.
Leo, what's your number one at this point? I feel like you're a big wild card here.
My number one of this list, I would go Half-Life Alex.
Whoa! Jesus. Leo,
okay?
What are your thoughts on Hades?
I bounced off it. I only played like 5 runs. I don't feel like I have a good opinion on it.
Really? That's surprising that you'd bounce off that. Is there any reason in particular, you think?
No. I just didn't want to do it.
You didn't want to do it.
I don't want to do this no more. If that helps.
Yeah, that does help. Kyle, where are you at with Hades?
Hades is interesting because I don't like that genre.
Mm-hmm.
I would argue that I still don't like that genre. I don't think Hades convinced me to like that genre, but I played it and beat it twice, which is like significant. Like that's, a showcase for how much it engaged me to keep going. Once I hit that, like even halfway through that second run where I was like, okay, I think I'm going to beat this one. I was like more or less like done with the game. Like I didn't really feel compelled to keep going, but like it's one of those things where it's like, even if it wasn't like my personal favorite game, it's one that is like, if it was at the top of our list, like I would be like, yeah, that feels right. Like my only hangups are like the things that I just get frustrated with about the genre. But like one of my favorite things about the game is just like Suryo was talking about, like the context it gives for what you're doing. Like the idea that like the narrative has a built-in conceit for why you're dying and reemerging every time. Like I love that stuff. I don't know why games don't do that more. It just feels like a proper embracing of the medium in an interesting way. So yeah, I like Hades. I mean, it's like I said, it hasn't really changed my opinion on roguelikes, but like it's the only one that I've really like enjoyed throughout the whole thing.
Yeah, I like it a lot too. I worry about the old Super Mario Odyssey factor with Hades, about it's so solid, no one can say anything negative about it.
But it's no one's number one.
So is it floating to the top of this list appropriately? Yeah.
It needs to be high. It should be high, but
I think it should. I think it should be damn high.
Yeah.
Yeah, it should be high, but as unbiased as I can be, I don't think it should be above Kentucky Route Zero or Final Fantasy VII Remake, 2 games I haven't played, but I've heard arguments for here today.
Wow.
So nice. It's listening. Like, all right, this is a remake.
I know, this is like amazing about video games this year, and also just absolutely troubling is like the top like 5 or 6. God, maybe even all of these. Except I didn't really like Animal Crossing personally, but like they're all pretty good contenders.
That's always the thing about the best games of the year.
Putting remake of them.
I don't know what you're talking about.
This document Eddie Power has gone to your head, Hanson.
Yeah, just
I've made
work
my
in progress.
case for that. That one I'm less into.
Yep.
Like,
Okay, well let's just work our way up from the bottom. I feel like bottom 3. We're locking that at this point. Yes?
That feels good.
Pathless, AC, Spiritfarer. Okay. Yeah. So now it's just a lot of games to try and sort beyond that. Holy mother of God. Half-Life Alex seems low based on this room. Is that correct?
I'd like it above Yakuza, which is admittedly a game I have not touched. So that's always that tough argument. But I'd like to see it higher, yeah.
I feel like it's, kind of shaking out that Yakuza's next.
I don't know.
It's a lot of points for being just trying something new in a new medium and pulling it off. That's not easy.
My issue is that I would put both of those at least 2 spots apiece higher. But
I would have that conversation.
Yeah.
What's that, Lou?
At some point, you're jumping people's favorite games of the year for your what? Yeah. Third favorite,
which is fair. I'm laying out my preference. I'm not saying it's going to happen.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, to that point, Cyril, I'd swap Ghost and Last of Us personally. That's where I'm at with that one.
You put Ghost above.
I personally would also swap those.
I would not.
I don't have a horse in that particular fight.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't either.
My horse is fighting pretty hard.
Laugh,
you gotta laugh.
My horse is chilling. My horse is.
My horse is exploding on a tripwire.
The horse riding in Ghost of Tsushima is great. So I don't know.
I think that's the one metric we should just this conversation.
Okay, I will say I haven't played Tsushima, but the wind feature sounds genuinely amazing. After spending so much of my life, I'm really bad at reading maps. After spending so much of my life getting lost, for stupid reasons in virtual environments, that sounds like an amazing little feature. Just want to throw that out there.
That's why we tipped our cap and gave it best thing. No doubt about it. Or runner up for best thing. Minimum best thing. Let me do something. I'm just going to do something. And audio listeners, bear with me.
Someone encourage him.
I just happened to move Hades to number 1, Final Fantasy VII Remake to number 2, Kentucky Road Zero, Last of Us Part 2, Ghost of Tsushima, Half-Life Alyx, Yakuza Like a Dragon, Spiritfarer, Animal Crossing Pathless. I just did that, and I just want you to think about what we've done here today. What seems off?
I know we're kind of Hades is everyone likes it, so it kind of floats to the top, but I don't know. I really feel like that's okay.
Yeah, I agree.
I also feel like it's very okay.
It seems like the most we're gonna agree on number 1.
Yeah. I mean, you guys, my disdain for the genre is I've been pretty outspoken about it, and I was eager to play through it, and that's a testament, man. You know.
Also, we've gone this far without talking about the music.
Yeah. Well, it's a full package. Incredible soundtrack. Right.
Yeah,
and the way it uses recurring themes to heighten certain encounters, the fact that the theme for the boss is basically the theme you've been hearing throughout the first that entire world amped up, and the way they kind of not to spoil stuff, but as you beat that game, you find new versions of those songs. And another thing that those new versions of the bosses are incredible. It has 2 of my favorite boss fights of all time. That game is just rife with really good stuff.
What feels off for people?
I mean, I Ghost still feels off to me, but I'm guessing there's people more excitement for Last of Us over Ghost.
Is there?
Hanson and Jeffem, right?
I mean, I feel like you're also. It's me, you, and Jeffem for big Last of Us champions. So you're a significant overlap there for the 2 of them.
I like Last of Us in the top 5. I just really like Ghost more. I had more. I mean, it's that weird argument of fun versus compelling, and Ghost of Tsushima was I was much more engaged with throughout, despite loving Last of Us. Really love Last of Us.
Is it worth noting that in terms of engagement, everybody that started Last of Us finished it, and it's still a pretty big game. Whereas
we were
Ghost
pressured by society to be a part of the conversation. People who work in this industry.
I will, as an addendum, I will say, as someone who finished Last of Us Part 2 and did not finish Ghost of Tsushima, I would bump Ghost of Tsushima
above.
I mean, there's not really spoilers you're trying to avoid with Tsushima necessarily.
Hang on,
it goes without saying, but I would also obviously agree with that move.
Okay, I would not, but I'm in the minority there. Leo, what happened, by the way? You were falling out of your chair?
I was leaning on my arm in my chair and I slipped off.
Come on, X-Rocker.
Eyes on the games, Hanson, all right? Focus up.
You're so distracting. Could you I've heard of a Zoom background, but could you put on a Zoom foreground?
Okay.
Hello, is this on?
Where your blue screen?
No, Leo, come back. Dare I ask, Is this right now the list?
Are we
Okay.
going to do the Final Fantasy thing again?
Okay,
Yeah.
sure.
Out of
Worth bringing up.
kindness, I feel like that.
Because you really snuck that one up there.
Yep.
And
Hey,
it seems like that's one that multiple people have a problem with.
yep. No sneaking here. Everything's up for debate. How are you feeling about it?
I like it.
Great. Well, then lock it in. No one's at it.
Yeah, it's that weird thing where it's like we're ranking passions. I feel like your passion is like so bright it's gonna blind me, Hanson. But I
It's
also
like a
feel
meteor.
I also feel like Serial called Kentucky Route Zero maybe his favorite game of all time.
Yep. I know.
So like it's tough, man.
Yeah, honestly, I mean, I could live, but having heard those two passionate arguments, giving it to Hades instead of one of those two feels a little wrong to me.
Yep. Just to
But
throw
again,
Hades back in that loop.
Yeah. Well, for me personally, like I think the only thing against Hades that I have is that there just happened to be one of my favorite games of all time released in that same year. Like I don't have any like real reason to knock Hades at this point. It's just like a game that I just absolutely adore with every fiber of my being came out that same year. That's just like the only thing.
And it's that tough thing where like Final Fantasy VII Remake, 5 of the 6 of us played it, and worst case scenario, Kyle liked it a lot. Serial liked it a lot.
Yeah.
I mean, that's pretty goddamn good. And compared to Kentucky Route Zero, where one person is over the moon about it, another person is absolutely in love with it. And
Her number one of the year.
Yeah. What's that? Yeah. You're right.
I'm in a weird place with Route Zero where I played the first chapter and the first, interstitial.
Mm-hmm.
And like it really felt like not even that I didn't like it or dislike it either way. I was just like, I don't think I got it. Like I almost think I just need to restart.
I mean, there is also
or something.
there is also an aspect of like it's not like a game you necessarily need to get. I think it is almost Lynchian in that like not that it's like abstract, but it's like less about like, oh, I figured out the plot and I know all the intricate details of all these characters. It's more about, for me, like just this incredible mood that it evokes of just like it feels serene at times. And I remember playing it off, when I got off a plane, like because I went to Japan when you can still do that, and just felt like this ridiculous sense of calm after finishing it. Of just like, I don't know what's going to happen in the next few months, but right now I feel okay. I feel like everything is going to be okay in a way that I hadn't really felt from a game in a really long time. But and that I will take that to me feels like a much larger takeaway from that game than like, oh yeah, like when they go into this mountain and there's like this backstory of like how they built this computer that analyzed the caves and stuff, and like how the corporation basically co-opted that, right? Like that stuff is really good and I love it, but it's to me, it's not a story you go into, I want to understand it, right? I still want to play it because I will take away new things when I play it again.
Yeah, and I will say like it's definitely like kind of like postmodern storytelling, so it's more cyclical, like it's less about like some sort of linearity or clarity. It's definitely something to just sort of soak in. But what I do appreciate about it specifically is that is really different for video games, right? Like video games for so long are sort of based off of like these really sort of like narrow heroes journeys where it's like we have weaker hero and then we get stronger hero, and like it's all about like getting to the final boss, and it is like like very traditional sort of Western storytelling. And so it's cool to see a game that works really well with like a different form of narrative, and I really appreciate that. Like I feel like that is pushing video games as a medium like forward in like a much larger sense. Like the only game that I feel like has really done this well is maybe like Edith Finch. So
feels genuinely new.
Yeah. Seems like
I like swapping Kentucky and Final Fantasy, but like, you
obviously I don't. But I think
yeah.
But we're not ruling it out. I think it's just that thing of 2 people love Kentucky Route Zero a lot, and 2 people, well, I didn't get it. I think it's fair to say. So does that account for anything? It's like I read this poem and I didn't understand it.
That just shows you it's smart.
There's probably something there.
Yeah. I mean, I'm also kind of a sucker for like just trying something new, man. Like I watched Tenet recently, and it was a movie that confused me, and like I wasn't even sure if I totally liked it, but I was like, man, I would much rather have this than like, you know, the next Marvel thing, which I love those Marvel movies too, but like I just go for something, you know, like swing big and just try something.
Which is why Last of Us Part 2 should be higher on that list.
Agreed.
I will say that of all people, I think I'm okay with this ranking. I think like I'm glad that Kentucky Zero is getting as much credit as it deserves.
Yeah,
but I don't want to downplay all of your passion for Final Fantasy VII. Like I think as a group we're really strong on that game in a way that like it is one of the
as a group. That's a good point.
I think it's hard because it's like so far of what I've played of Final Fantasy, like I genuinely love it, but it is this matter of like hype versus like a deep appreciation, you know, like I feel like I can appreciate Kentucky Road Zero, whereas like Final Fantasy VII, I'm like, hell yeah, like I'm ready to go. But it's just like a really different. Yeah, they're just they are so different, and so it's like, okay, that's like unfortunate that we have to like rank them even on the same list, right? Because they just feel so different. But like, they're both great. They're both great games.
You know what else is great? This list.
Well, hang on though, Leo. I like Leo's point of shouldn't we honor the group by choosing something that we're red hot about for the number one spot versus Hades, which is a game we all think is freaking awesome. But I was
going to suggest, as somebody who's barely played the top 3 games, so brace for my opinion about these. I would love to move Hades to number 3 and call it good, and then Kentucky Route Zero is honored more by getting number 2 than it would be by getting number 3.
Yeah, do that, then switch back Last of Us and Ghost, and then we're all good. And
then switch that back again, and then we'll be
No, don't do that. Don't do that last part.
If you're gonna do that, then you got to keep Ghost up high. You can't be switching.
I'm just following what the people were asking for.
Okay, can you please put Ghost of Tsushima above Last of Us?
That's still really high. The risk takers, come on.
There we go.
Thank you.
Like I've made my point clear about Final Fantasy VII that I had some issues with it, but like Hanson, I can't deny that like it feels like that game changed your life.
I love it so much, but I think to be fair, I think
the
Serial
same way Kentucky changed Serial.
Yeah, and Anna's love it. Yeah, I mean, it's just a matter of there's more people that liked it a lot surrounding this group than there were for Kentucky Road Zero.
Yeah, I mean that's kind of why I think I would go for Hades as like the largest consensus pick, but
yeah. And if I may shoot myself in the foot, there's a part of me that I love Final Fantasy VII, but it is a lumpy, weird kid. You know, it's like there are frustrating sections of that game. No doubt about it. Like the side quests can drag on. There's just like the dungeons at the end where you're running through the thing and running along the wall. There's a lot of just lowish points that still, worst case scenario, are just like, this is fine. But it is an uneven experience compared to Hades, which is one of the most even experiences ever created in the history of video games, I would argue. Honestly, like, it is just so unbelievably tight that it's tough to not honor that.
Yeah, I do feel like with Final Fantasy VII as well, like there are some, like they overlook some aspects of like quality of life things that I just wish that they hadn't, given the like how big of a game it was. Like navigating some of those towns was like a goddamn nightmare, you know, and then running back and forth and back and forth. And then I will say, I was just like, I say this after coming out swinging for it because I genuinely love those characters so much. I don't think I will like any, you know, anyways, but like I was not sold on the combat as much as everyone else was. Like I think playing as Tifa is good. I think playing as Cloud is weird. I think playing as Aerith can be weird. I think that like they actually haven't perfected that yet.
The part that I love the combat a lot, I still think the problem is with flying enemies. Unless you're using Barret, like it's a little wonky. No matter who you're playing with, trying to deal with that.
Yeah, it's like a fairly minor issue, but for me, like the fact that it is a fusion of RPG and action kind of made for some kind of rough sticking points where I wanted to play it like an action game, like a Devil May Cry. It doesn't feel like it goes all the way there where I'm waiting for spell cooldowns and like this animation is playing out because the game is balanced because this is still a spell. You can't just like cancel stuff into like it is not as reactive as an action game, and it shouldn't be. But it also like when I was playing Tifa, I wanted to play Devil May Cry, right? Like because that's what that game that character alludes to, and it feels like when you try to do that, it kind of rubs up against that, and but you do feel like. So like to what Anna was saying, it feels like they could refine it, further. But that said, it feels like a fairly minor thing because that's like my favorite part about that game is how well they managed to blend RPG and action.
Yeah.
It still feels like Hades is quite a ways further down people's lists though for it to be number one.
I mean, personal list, Hades is going to be around the 5 or 6 mark probably for me.
That's kind of where I am too.
Pretty strong number 2 for me.
I think that's gonna be top 5 for me. I don't think it'll be 1 or 2, but it could be 2 or 3.
Oh boy.
I don't know that it's on my list yet.
Ooh.
Oh, Leo hates it.
Left field.
If I wasn't clear, it's the worst game ever made.
But maybe it's a cop out, but it is one of those things that it's like I look at, like you're saying, and like it's kind of undeniable. I mean, like how much do I measure my just like I don't like this, if I don't like sci-fi in it, but like it's a really good story within a sci-fi universe, like if I just don't really love the genre, but it's like, I played it and beat it and had a great time despite disliking the genre. It's a weird like competition in my brain.
Right. But there's ones that you've liked more this year. Like a lot of them that you liked more this year. And it is, maybe I'm just traumatized by the Mario Odyssey argument of old, but it is that feeling of like, who's this game's biggest champion and is willing to die for it? As opposed to, we all really enjoyed our time with that except for Leo.
And
is that number one compared to Final Fantasy, which Ben is ready to die for, and I'm really hot on, and everyone else mostly liked except for Leo again because
he doesn't know it's good.
But
if we're measuring love, the only way to do it is by the arguments we've heard, and I feel like that top 3 looks fine to me. Final Fantasy VII, Kentucky Route Zero, Hades.
I think so too.
I can live with it.
The 4 and 5 that we should seriously consider.
No, we're good.
We can revisit that.
Leo likes Ghost of Tsushima. Let's do Leo a favor.
Leo does like Ghost.
Leo.
I'm with you, Jeffem, but I feel like it's about even, and I feel like Kyle is that vice presidential tiebreaker here in the Senate.
The guy who cried multiple times during The Last of Us 2.
Yeah, great, amazing story. I mean, we could it's that thing, that Naughty Dog argument. It's always like, gameplay's okay, but amazing story where Tsushima just had this. I don't know. And
how many times did you cry during Ghost of
Tsushima? At the time, but Tsushima is a better use of the medium. It's just a video game that I love. Where Last of Us is amazing performance with a really good story. Which is in a list like this, I give the edge to Tsushima in that sense. I mean, I know we're kind of regurgitating the Half-Life versus Last of Us moment here a little bit, but in that moment, I did find the story more compelling than the action in Half-Life Alyx in that situation. But versus Ghost of Tsushima, I found the gameplay of Ghost of Tsushima and the world and the visuals and the wind more compelling than the sort of great larger parts of Last of Us.
And to its credit, I think Ghost of Tsushima does some interesting story stuff through gameplay with the way that you're getting darker and darker with the way you're handling things, and that being a conflict with your uncle. I'm not going to pretend it's the story of The Last of Us or on that level, but I think it does do interesting stuff in that field. It's not all gameplay for me, I think.
Another good use of the medium of forcing you to go against what you've learned because it's required for progress. You know what I mean? It's you've learned this thing as a child that how you're supposed to act, and one of the first things you have to do is you have to do the opposite of what you've been told your whole life in order to progress in this game, which I think is interesting. I like that kind of stuff in games, you know.
I feel guilty about having the game that I love so much at the top of this list. It freaks me out personally, but
Shouldn't.
Thank you. I was waiting for that. No, but I think where I just have to keep reframing it is that idea of, well, it's our list and our collective enthusiasm for these games. It's not some objective measure of this is the best game of the year. It's our collective.
It's the game we like them.
You're breaking up there, but I think he said move Hades.
It's the game we like the most. I don't think there's nothing objective about it. It's not about like this. We've calculated it. That's the best game. Like, I think it's more about like you said, it's a collection of how much we're into all of these.
Because the part that kills me though, is thinking about, I think Hades is the best game on this list.
No, I don't like that. It's objective. Yeah,
I know, but I'm
dumb. You can't be objective about this kind of stuff.
I know.
There is a part of me that like I feel even though I like Kentucky Route Zero better, for whatever reason, I'm most comfortable with having Hades at the top. Is sort of where I'm at. So I feel like it's a similar situation where I would like to see Kentucky Route Zero. Like, if it were my personal list, I would love to see it at number 1. But like you said, I would feel almost a little guilty about it.
Right.
Versus I think Hades is like just like a game I have no qualms about recommending. Like in a weird way. If we're making this list to say like, hey, what game, if you were to play one game, the game of the year, I would like the first thing I would suggest. It's the reason I think it's the first game I listed for that reason. I think it is like a fantastic game that I think everyone should play.
I agree, but that's the catch, is this list isn't list of 2 tens of games that we'd recommend you play right now.
I think there is also an extra weight of like, you know, one of these is the game we're going to say is our game of the year.
Yep.
I feel like with the top 3, we have the white hot passion that Hansen has, plus a lot of people who really loved it, and we don't have a ton of negative things to say about it. Number 2 kind of makes sense with Kentucky Route Zero because it is trying these crazy different things, and 2 people absolutely love it for that, and 2 don't get it. And so like that kind of evens out. And then Hades is the one that we can all say like, yeah, we really enjoyed it. We loved our time with it, but it didn't hit the same kind of peak as those first 2 did.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's not a bad place to be, number 3.
Yeah.
I feel good about it.
Anna, how you feeling?
I mean, I feel like really lucky because if I were to like make this list myself, this is, you know, without any input from people, I feel some of your guilt right now is what I'm saying. Because I know a lot of people really liked Last of Us Part 2, for example.
Yeah.
And so I feel a little, even though I actually I don't feel bad about Kentucky Road Zero, but I feel bad about all 3, you know, being there.
Different ways. Yeah.
I think as much as I would like to, like, I don't. Yeah, I think I'm more or less okay with this list, I would say.
I have to fight my urge because I had my sort of tirade about 7 Remake. I have to fight my urge to be like, well, I don't want it to be number 1, so I'm just going to pick something that's not that, you know? Yep. But it's like when I take a step back, it's like, I liked that game. I just had this one admittedly large issue with it, but like, it's a good game, you know? Yeah. Like, I'm going to play part 2, you know?
Is this the list?
It is. It is.
Oh, it is.
Great. Final door slamming is happening right now. If anybody wants to shove their foot in it, now's the time.
Yeah, I feel like I am the, you know, Last of Us Part 2 is my number 1 pick, but Ghost is Kyle's number 1 pick, and there's just more people who were hotter on Ghost than The Last of Us, so that's cool.
Yeah.
I'm sorry,
I can accept that.
Anna, how are you feeling?
Leo, you're the one person who doesn't have to apologize for any of this because your favorite game is, well, it's right after that one. So like it kind of does like tear down between all of our number 1s.
Yeah.
You know, with Hades just kind of getting a bigger boost because almost all of us really enjoyed that one.
Undeniable, so, I think is your word, Kyle, which is an excellent way of talking about Hades, I feel like. All right, everybody. This is it. MinnMax's 2 tens for 2020.
You did it.
I'd argue it goes a little something like this. Final Fantasy VII Remake, #1 game of the year. I honestly did not see that coming.
The fan club is gonna go wild.
Oh my God. I was going into this fully expecting Hades.
I can't believe you.
I fully was expecting Hades to be the takeaway. I had just locked that into my brain a while ago. This is very surprising. Okay, Final Fantasy VII Remake, #1. Moving down the list. Kentucky Route Zero, #2. #3 is Hades. #4, Ghost of Tsushima. 5 is Last of Us Part 2. 6, Half-Life Alyx. 7, Yakuza Like a Dragon. 8, Spiritfarer. 9, Animal Crossing New Horizons. 10, The Pathless. It'd be funny if we just miscounted one of these times. We're just way off. Those aren't 10 there at all. Everybody knows the second set of 10s. If found, the success story of the day, as #11, #12 is Fuser, 13, Ori and the Will of the Wisps, 14, Gears Tactics, 15, Crash Bandicoot 4, It's About Time, 16, Immortals Phoenix Rising, 17, Persona 5 Royal. Where are we at? Did I miscount?
18, Watch Dogs Legion.
Yeah.
Okay, 19, Assassin's Creed Valhalla, 20, Paper Mario, The Origami King. Nothing could wipe away the paper. I thought...
It's impressive that we got through it with only one major outlier mistake on the top, the 2 10.
Hey, you know what they say about Paper Mario, The Origami King? It don't fold. Okay, and then a bunch of other wonderful games that we also enjoyed this year. Thank you, everybody. Round of applause for video game developers in 2020, everybody. Yeesh.
Hard year to make games and release them.
Year. Congratulations, everybody, for excellent work. Thank you, MinnMax community, for sticking with us, listening to all of our Game of the Year content. Please... Shaziria in the live Backstage Pass feed, she says, we're all trying to not spoil until the podcast posts for the Patreon feed, yeah? Yes, that is true. So that'll be a couple weeks from now, technically, so that's confusing. But yes, Shaziria, please don't spoil what won. Oh my God, but thank you for sticking with us for the Game of the Year discussions, everybody. Let us know what worked, what didn't, what you'd like to see from next year from our Game of the Year discussion. But I feel really good about how thorough of a look at 2020 this has been. Like, if you round up all of our conversations, it's pretty freaking wild how exhaustive it's been. Yeah. Just the number of games that we did the deepest dive on that are up here. We really talked the hell about games in 2020. So thank you for your support. Thank you for enjoying our stuff. We appreciate the kind words and all the Patreon supporters and all the viewers and watchers outside of that. Oh boy. Anything anybody wants to plug? End of the year.
What's the holiday special? Holiday special out?
Holiday special is out. Yep. If you want to rekindle your favorite holiday moments, you can check that out. Also, yeah, it's a good reminder. If you're just listening to this, check out MinnMax's YouTube channel. We think there's a lot of good stuff up there. And so give it a whirl, cruise through it, see what pops out to you. There's a lot of content if you just listen to this podcast you might not be familiar with, including we have one of my favorite videos we've ever done is up on our YouTube channel, which is about critiquing video games' best museums in 2020 with actual museum directors. But we got the museum director for the Air and Space Museum in DC, the Henry Ford Museum, and it's very fun just to get their reactions to these video games. I'm very happy with how that turned out, so please check that out. Any help sharing MinnMax content with a friend is obviously appreciated. And thank you to the following Patreon supporters for their generous support of MinnMax at the $50 tier. You know who I'm talking about. It's PrettyGoodPrinting.com. Rich McLaughlin's Opposwitch, BeatenDownBrian, I Am 8-Bit, This Week in Video Games, Jawarhello, Mirko Arico-Torreno, Chris Logan, Zachary Pligge, Rebekah Lang, Mark Seliga, Starkiller, Ludwig Roque, Andrew Vala, Jesse Vitelli, SuperSeriousSam, Thomas Hoster, Yarrow, SpiralInYourEyes, Richard Smuts, Clint Farley, Preetham Yarlagadda, Clayton Myers, Spider Dan, Zach Einck, Steve Bamdad, and SlyckNic. Hey everybody, we'll see you in 2021. Let's make this a better year, everybody. Bye everybody, be good, have fun, let's go!